Chapter 59. Night. Following the memories that remained in his mind, Noah walked along a small path in Magnolia Forest. After walking for about 10 minutes, he arrived at the bank of the river. Even in the incomparably dark night, the river still flowed as quietly as it did 4 years ago. The faint but clear sound of flowing water echoed in Noah's ears, miraculously calming his heart. Standing by the bank, Noah quietly looked at the familiar river before him. What flashed in his mind was the time when he trained his mana control and swordsmanship here, as well as the time when he trained around Magnolia. As mentioned earlier, Noah was very likely to be an anomaly. An anomaly who was born with the appearance and intelligence of a 10-year-old. In other words, Noah, who had just turned 17 this year, had not only lived for 7 years, but he had also spent almost all of those 7 years training himself and strengthening himself. Therefore, to Noah, those 7 years were boring but also very meaningful. That was because while Noah had been training himself, he also had his own family. That was because while Noah had been growing stronger, he also had his own companions. Therefore, even if Noah was given another chance, Noah would still spend those 7 years on the same thing without any regrets. That was something that Noah had never regretted. Immersed in his memories, Noah soon heard 2 or 3 footsteps behind him, pulling him back from his memories. Ah! It's really here. As the cheerful voice sounded, the 3 girls who had once shared this secret place with Noah appeared on the other side of the forest. Just like in the past, Mira, Lisanna, and Elisha came to Noah's side. Why are you hiding here by yourself? Mira crossed her arms as a provocative smile appeared on her face. Is it because you haven't been back in the guild for too long, so you're shy? There are many newbies who have only joined Fairy Tale in the past 4 years. They're all very curious about you, Big Brother Noah. Lisanna hugged Noah's arm and smiled sweetly. I told them that Big Brother Noah used to be a powerful archmage like Big Sister Mira and Elisha, but they didn't believe me. Actually, most of them already believed it. They just didn't say it out loud. Elisha chuckled. After all, many people saw how Noah effortlessly neutralized my attack with Mira and I this morning. Listening to his 3 childhood playmates speak one after another, but the style of their words was still the same as before, Noah smiled knowingly. It seems that you've all had a good time in the guild these past 4 years. Big Brother Noah, Big Sister Mira and Elisha are no longer the same as they were 4 years ago. Lisanna smiled mysteriously. Then, she said something that made Noah startled. No matter what, Big Sister Mira and Elisha have already become S-rank archmages. S-rank archmages? This time, Noah was really surprised. He looked at Mira and Elisha in astonishment. You passed the S-rank archmage advancement test. About 2 years after you left, I was selected by the chairman to take part in that year's S-rank archmage advancement test, Elisha said with some nostalgia. Many things happened in between, and there were times when I almost gave up. But in the end, I persevered and passed that year's S-rank archmage advancement test, obtaining the qualifications to be promoted to an S-rank archmage. Although I wasn't willing, I passed the S-rank archmage advancement test a year after she became an S-rank archmage. Myra's face was full of displeasure. In other words, I became an S-rank archmage a year ago. That year, when the 15-year-old Elisha passed the S-rank archmage advancement test and became an S-rank archmage, it caused quite a commotion. Because of this, she became known as the youngest S-rank archmage in the history of Fairy Tale. Lisanna said with a smile. Although Big Sister Mira was late by a year, there weren't many people in the history of Fairy Tale who became an S-rank archmage at the age of 16. Big Brother Noah, you're not just one step behind. Hearing that, the shock in Noah's heart slowly dissipated. Looking at Mira and Elisha's faces, he more or less felt admiration for these 2 playmates of the same age. Noah didn't know what the S-rank archmage advancement test of other guilds was like. Fairy Tale's S-rank archmage advancement test had some changes every year, so it couldn't be used as a reference. However, if Fairy Tale's members wanted to take part in the S-rank archmage advancement test, first of all, not only did they need to have a certain amount of strength, they also needed to have a certain amount of experience. This experience didn't refer to the length of time they had spent in Fairy Tale. It might be a bit of an exaggeration to say that a new member could take part in Fairy Tale's S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test, but basically, if they had 1 or 2 years' time, it wouldn't be a problem to take part in Fairy Tale's S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test. Therefore, the experience here referred to the Archmage's activity and ability before taking part in the S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test. That was to say, the Archmage had accepted and completed a certain number of tasks in the guild. In the end, this so-called experience was to let the guild leaders see that they had the ability to take part in the S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test. In this way, the guild leader would consider letting the Archmage who was active enough to enter his site and had a certain amount of ability to take part in the S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test. When Alusha took part in the S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test, she was 15 years old. When Mira took part in the S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test, she was 16 years old. This was enough to prove that the two girls were able to obtain the qualifications to take part in the S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test at such a young age. How much effort had they put in? Even Noah's nominal elder brother, the genius who had shocked Kildas, only obtained the qualifications to take part in the S-Rank Archmage Advancement Test at the age of 17. He passed and was promoted to an S-Rank Archmage. Mira and Alusha were able to reach this step earlier than Laxas. It was no wonder that Alusha spoke with a slightly proud tone. "Aren't you guys too cunning?" Noah was slightly dissatisfied. "In these 4 years, you guys have come looking for me many times, but you didn't tell me about this matter." Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha laughed at the same time, as if telling Noah that they did it on purpose. Noah smiled bitterly. "Then, how are you doing?" Mira licked her lips and looked at Noah with a burning gaze. "Since you've chosen to come back, that means that your crush will no longer cause any problems, right?" Lisanna and Alusha's eyes were also shining, clearly very concerned about this matter. In response, Noah seemed to be repaying the 3 girls for their pranks and unhappily avoided answering. "Want to know? Let's talk about it when we have the chance." This sentence unsurprisingly caused Mira and Alusha to be dissatisfied. Only Lisanna looked as if she had thought of something. Her face was slightly red as she moved her face close to Noah's ear and said in a mosquito-like voice. "This time, Big Brother Noah won't crush my clothes and Big Sister Myra's, right?" Noah almost tripped and fell to the ground. He rolled his eyes, causing Lisanna to laugh continuously. This night, it was as if they had returned to their childhood. The 4 of them stayed in a secret place that only they knew. The sounds of laughter and banter lasted for a long time. Chapter 60. Bye-bye. Big Brother Noah. Don't go to bed too late and not wake up tomorrow. See you tomorrow. After saying their goodbyes, Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha noisily walked in the direction of the Fairy Tale Guild, leaving only their backs to Noah. Looking at Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha's silhouettes gradually fading away in the darkness, Noah couldn't help but feel that his 3 childhood playmates had really changed a lot. Of course, the changes Noah was referring to weren't the personalities of Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha. In fact, in terms of personality, there were basically no changes to the 3 girls. What had changed the most was their appearance. After 4 years, Mira, Lisanna, and Alusha had become extremely attractive women in all senses of the word. Height, figure, wealth, all these factors had matured to varying degrees in the past 4 years. Compared to their youthful selves, the changes could be said to be earth-shattering. At the age of 15, Lisanna's body hadn't fully matured, but she already had her own unique charm. From time to time, she would reveal her delicate side and attract the attention of others. While Alusha still wore her cold armor all day long, hiding most of her body, making it impossible to truly judge how much she had grown over the years. However, her delicate face had shed 80 to 90% of its childishness and was now extremely beautiful. There was no need to talk about Mira. Her looks weren't inferior to Alusha's, and her beautiful figure wasn't completely hidden like Alusha's. The impact on Noah was the greatest. Undoubtedly, when they were found half a year ago in the wilderness, the growth of the three girls wasn't so obvious. In just half a year, they had actually grown to such an extent. This was probably what the saying, "a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood," meant. Everyone's grown up. In the end, Noah could only sigh and turn around, walking in the direction of the Fairy Tale Guild. Not far from Fairy Tale, there was a female dormitory specially provided for the girls of the guild. Ever since Alusha joined Fairy Tale, she lived in the female dormitory, and the other girls of the guild lived there as well. Mira and Lisanna, on the other hand, lived with Elfman. The three siblings lived somewhere else. As for Noah, he still chose to live in the Fairy Tale Guild. After all, that was where Noah had lived for at least 2 years. From a certain point of view, it was an existence that was similar to his shelter. He really couldn't bear to move out. Apart from Noah, no one else in the Fairy Tale Guild would be there at night unless something special happened. Or perhaps, someone had come specifically for Noah. At a place where they could clearly see the entrance of Fairy Tale, Noah had unknowingly stopped in his tracks. He stood there and raised his eyes to look ahead. Whoosh! A cold night wind blew from afar, blowing past Noah and the entrance of Fairy Tale. Standing there, a tall and sturdy figure with a coat fluttered in the wind. It was a young man who was around 20 years old, slightly older than Noah. He wore a magic musical instrument called a sound pot on his ear. The young man stood not far from the entrance of Fairy's Tale with his arms crossed in front of his chest and his eyes closed. He allowed the fur coat draped over his body to fly up and down in the wind, exuding an oppressive aura that could not be ignored. And this oppressive aura, when Noah appeared, obviously became more vigorous. Noah looked straight at the young man who was exuding a powerful aura without saying a word. Although the expression on his face wasn't as calm as if he had expected the other party to come, he also believed that it wouldn't be strange for the other party to appear in front of him anytime. After a while, the young man slowly opened his eyes, revealing a pair of eyes that were as sharp as an eagle's and as violent as a tiger's in Noah's field of vision. "You have grown up." Hearing this, Noah replied with a calm face. "You are still the same as before, not much has changed." It was only 2 or 3 seconds of conversation, but the atmosphere was filled with tension. Anyone could see that the relationship between the two of them could not be considered friendly. "Do you need something from me?" Noah, who clearly knew the other party's personality, did not have the intention to waste any time and directly looked at the other party. Laxas. The one who came was Noah's elder brother in name, Makarov's grandson Laxas Doria. "Don't be so cold, as your elder brother, don't I have the right to care for my younger brother?" Laxas said with a cold expression. "Didn't you learn Kildas's magic and make an oath in front of the guild members that you will not return if you can't completely control your magic and train outside for 4 years? Now that you are back, it means that you have succeeded, right?" Laxas lowered his arms that were crossed in front of his chest, his eyes slowly becoming dangerous. "Just a little, let me, your elder brother, test your tolerance, let me see how much you have grown in these 4 years." The tension in the air instantly turned into a heavy feeling. Facing Laxas's unfriendly invitation, Noah's face was still calm, but his eyes revealed a rare look of mockery. "What? When did you become like Naz, looking for people to duel? Don't confuse me with that guy who likes to play games." Laxas grinned maliciously. "I only attack the prey that I am interested in." As soon as his voice fell, golden arcs of electricity suddenly surged out from Laxas's body, finally forming a layer of lightning net that enveloped his entire body. Noah looked at the arcs of electricity that enveloped Laxas like countless snakes that leaped around him. He felt that the other party's magic power was many times more powerful than that at the ritual lake and slightly narrowed his eyes. On the opposite side, Laxas had already sneered. He suddenly stomped his foot, and a bolt of lightning as thick as an arm suddenly fell from his body. Like a python, it traveled along Laxas's foot to the ground, and then along the ground, it violently shot towards Noah. Looking at the snake-like arc of electricity, Noah didn't even raise his eyes, allowing the extraordinary lightning to travel along the ground and touch his body. Bang! However, the moment the snake-like lightning touched Noah's body, it seemed to have been completely cut open. In a muffled sound, it shattered into pieces of extremely intact cubes, and finally, it dissipated into the air. Oh! Laxus's unruly smile grew wider and wider. Finally, you're more decent than before. Then, are you satisfied? Noah more or less seemed to be somewhat impatient. You should know that I don't like meaningless battles. If you have achieved your goal, then let's stop here. Stop. Laxus's gaze turned cold. Don't joke with me. After saying that, Laxus finally stopped standing still. Magic power surged out from his body, turning into dazzling arcs of electricity that enveloped Laxus's sturdy body. Like a flash of lightning, Laxus's figure directly turned into a bolt of lightning, and in the blink of an eye, appeared in front of Noah amidst the turbulence in the atmosphere. In the next moment, the fist that was surrounded by lightning brought along the sound of wind and thunder as it violently blasted towards Noah's head. Chapter 61. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of thunder and lightning clashing spread in the air. Buzz. The atmosphere was also vibrating wildly. Noah finally raised his head due to the oncoming violent thunder force. His gaze was fixed on the huge fist wrapped in thunder and lightning, and he casually took a small step to the left. The fist wrapped in thunder and lightning brushed past Noah's ear, and the sound of thunder reverberated crazily. Noah easily dodged the attack, but Laxus laughed wildly. His fist suddenly swung out in a strange angle, and fiercely smashed towards Noah's shoulder below. However, Laxus's fist suddenly froze just as it swung down. Unknowingly, Noah's hand had already grasped Laxus's wrist that was smashing down. The force in his hand was constantly exerting on Laxus's wrist, causing Laxus to feel a slight pain. His strength is quite strong. Laxus's attack was blocked again, and a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. Immediately, the hand that was grasped by Noah's wrist suddenly surged with thunder and lightning. Beep, beep, beep. The violent golden arc condensed into a ball in Laxus's hand, and turned into a scorching plasma body. Laxus roared as if he was holding thunder and lightning in his hand. Violent volt. The power of the hand that was enveloped by lightning surged, and it forcibly broke free from Noah's hand that was holding it. With a fierce force, it smashed down furiously. This smash even produced a tearing sound in the air, and the golden arc also lit up the entire scene. Feeling the power of Laxus's blow, Noah was slightly surprised. He finally stopped defending, and his body suddenly retreated, clenching his fist tightly. Buzz! A white radiance emerged from Noah's fist, and as Noah swung, it fiercely collided with Laxus's thunder and lightning fist. Bang! A muffled sound rang out, and a violent wind blew in all directions. Bang! In the center of the wind, the plasma body in Laxus's hand was like a fragile powder the moment it came into contact with the white radiance in Noah's hand. It couldn't even last for a second, and it turned into complete small cubes and shattered. Superior grade destruction magic, crush. It wasn't only able to shatter matter. When it's learned, it can even shatter magic in one move. After 4 years, Noah has finally mastered crush, to the point of being able to destroy his opponent's magic. Laxus's body was slightly sluggish, but he quickly recovered. A fierce glint flashed in his eyes, and he even raised his other hand. Both of his fists flashed with the radiance of thunder and lightning, and wildly danced out, creating a dazzling lightning fist that almost covered Noah's field of vision. The sharp sound of wind breaking echoed in the night sky. Facing Laxus's fierce attack, Noah's expression didn't change, and he also raised his fist, which was flashing with the unique magical radiance of crush. With the help of his outstanding perception ability, no matter how fast Laxus's attack was, the real attack still couldn't escape Noah's prying eyes. Therefore, when the violent lightning fist came, Noah immediately swung his fist, not to be outdone, and fiercely punched back. Bang 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 bang. For a moment, in front of the door of Fairy's Tale, white light and lightning constantly flashed. The two sides in the battle punched back and forth, and afterimages frequently appeared in the air, creating a dull sound. It wasn't just the sound of fists colliding with each other, but also the sound of the golden lightning being shattered in one move by Crush. Noah was actually able to fight so many rounds with Laxus, who had been an S-rank magic shooter for 4 years, and still not lose. This was something that even Mira and Alusha, who were S-rank magic shooters like Laxus, couldn't do. Only Laxus knew that on the surface, the two seemed to be evenly matched, but the one who was at a disadvantage was himself. Every time the lightning wrapped around Laxus's fist rose, it would be mercilessly shattered by Noah's Crush. In other words, Laxus's and Noah's fists collided, and it was only a simple brute fist. Under such circumstances, Laxus could clearly feel that with every collision of fists, his own arm was also transmitted with a considerable amount of force, shaking Laxus's fist to the point of pain, and his body to the point of trembling violently. In the past 4 years, Noah had not only been practicing magic with all his might. Physical ability, reaction ability, fighting ability, perception ability, battle experience, and so on, and so forth, all of these were within the scope of Noah's training. Clearly, in terms of physical ability, Noah was superior to Laxus by a notch. Furious thunderstorm. A hint of seriousness emerged in Laxus's eyes, and the underestimation of Noah that he had in his heart all this time was also retracted. The wind from his fist changed, and with a roar, a violent sound of thunder abruptly resounded in the air. Suddenly, in the sky, a pitch-black thundercloud appeared without any warning, and the lightning that rose from Laxus's body flickered within, and then quickly retracted. Rumble. In the next moment, thunderbolts emerged from the thunderclouds like a violent storm. As soon as they fell, they mercilessly smashed downward. Noah's pitch-black eyes suddenly surged with a hint of coldness, and an incomparably valiant magic, like a flood, violently burst out from his body. At this moment, Noah finally displayed his unparalleled magic. As his magic surged, Noah's fist was also tightly clenched, and a white light gathered on his fist, and suddenly, he blasted upwards. Wang! Under the slightly shocked gaze of Laxus, on the fist that Noah swung upwards, a bright white light suddenly burst out, turning into a substantial impact light beam, and with an ear-piercing explosion, it soared into the sky, and collided with the storm of lightning. Dong! A loud, oppressive sound reverberated through the air, and a vigorous shockwave surged out, causing the ground around the fairy tale to crack open like a spiderweb. And the storm of lightning was also instantly crushed by the white impact light beam, one by one, and shattered. Immediately after, the white impact light beam did not reduce in power, and collided with the pitch-black thundercloud. Pang! The pitch-black thundercloud immediately followed the fate of the storm of lightning, and was instantly dispersed by the white impact light beam, turning into complete cubes and shattering into pieces. Then, the pitch-black thundercloud was completely shattered like black particles, and slowly floated down in the background. The scene of Noah's cold expression, raising his fist, mixed with a fierce wind, and fiercely smashing towards Laxus, was imprinted in his eyes. This scene was clearly reflected in his eyes, and Noah's fist also slowly enlarged in Laxus's pupils, causing Laxus's pupils to shrink. Just as Noah's fist was about to hit Laxus, a surge of magic rose from Laxus's strong body. Ha! Laxus roared out, and the muscles on his whole body fiercely bulged. Both of his arms were like iron hammers, and his body flashed with violent lightning. A fist mixed with violent lightning struck out, and Laxus' beast-like roar reverberated in the night sky. Thunder Dragon's crushing fist. As a result, the fist that was covered with resplendent white light and the fist that was covered with berserk lightning violently collided. Dong! Under the night sky, in front of Fairy's Tale's door, a storm-like shockwave suddenly exploded, bringing with it lightning and white light that filled every corner of the scene. For a long time, it was unable to calm down. Chapter 62. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past the location of the fairy's tail, causing the dust and wind in front of the fairy's tail to dissipate along with the wind. Beep! traces of weak electric arcs were still spreading on the ground. Pa! Pa! Small pieces of gravel fell to the ground one after another. In the middle of the field, Noah and Laxus had already put some distance between each other. Separated by this distance, they stared at each other with different expressions in their eyes. The expression in Laxus's eyes was angry and indifferent. Noah's eyes flashed with a hint of thoughtfulness. Sensing the magical energy rising from Laxus's body bit by bit, as well as the unique magical energy on the golden electric arcs, Noah slowly straightened his body and stared straight ahead as he recalled the magic that Laxus had just cast. You really are a dragon slayer archmage. A dragon slayer archmage. He was a sorcerer who had learned the ancient lost magic specifically used to fight against dragons, dragon slayer magic. When he was a child, Noah relied on his extraordinary sensing ability to sense that Laxus's body had a different kind of magic hidden in it. The special magic power that seemed to hide a ferocious beast had always bothered Noah. It wasn't until he met Naz that Noah began to suspect something when he sensed the same kind of magic hidden in Laxus's body. Was Laxus also a dragon slayer archmage? Now, this suspicion had finally been confirmed. Lay's dragon slayer archmage. Noah stared at Laxus's face. Why do you know this kind of magic? Naz practiced fire's dragon slayer archmage. That was because Naz was the son of a dragon adopted by the fire dragon Igunir. Wendy, whom he had met in the forest, practiced Sky's dragon slayer archmage. However, that was also because Wendy was the daughter of Sky Dragon Grandine. Although Laxus's mother was no longer around, and his father was expelled from the fairy tale by Makarov for some reason, he grew up in the fairy tale. He was truly a child raised by humans. How could he be the son of a dragon? Didn't I tell you not to mix me up with those guys who only know how to play games all day? Laxus said coldly as he raised his arm that was flashing with dragon lightning. Although it's very unpleasant to talk about it, I wasn't as healthy as you guys when I was young. I was very weak. Therefore, my father implanted the dragon magic crystal in my body, which allowed me to use the dragon slayer magic, allowing me to become a dragon slayer magic shooter and possess this power. Magic crystals. It was a type of crystal that could be used to store magic, and could also be used to store certain types of magic. It was an extremely convenient item that could be used as a magic tool with various effects. The dragon magic crystal that Laxus was talking about should be a special crystal that stored the magic and magic of a dragon, allowing the user to directly possess the dragon slayer magic. In other words, Laxus was different from Naz, who was the type of dragon slayer magic shooter that was taught magic by a dragon. He could be considered a new type of dragon slayer magic shooter. So that's how it is. Noah said indifferently. Extraordinary talent, coupled with the magic and magic of a dragon, is this how you became so strong? Although Lax's lightning attribute, Dragon Slayer magic, was only a flash in the pan, just from the magic that Noah sensed, Lax's was probably much stronger than Mira and Elusha. And judging from Lax's speed of growth, in another 2 to 3 years, Lax's might even catch up to Kilda's. In other words, the current Lax's was not far from the level of a magic shooter like the 10 Great Saint Magus. However, this was not strange. After all, Laxus originally had a monstrous talent. Even if he did not use the Dragon Slayer magic, it was possible that he could be comparable to Mira and Elusha. If he added the ancient lost magic that was much stronger than ordinary magic, it was only a matter of time before he caught up to Kilda's. Laxus seemed to know what Noah meant. He did not refute, nor did he agree. Instead, after a moment of silence, he said this. Do you think that I am strong? N? Noah was slightly startled. His expression became a little doubtful, but he still spoke the truth. If you are referring to your strength, then I admit that you are indeed very strong. Even Mira and Elusha might not be your opponent. Even Kilda should not take long before you surpass him, right? You think so too, right? Laxus laughed. His laughter was a little crazy, and the lightning on his body suddenly soared to the point that it was enough to destroy the ground. But, undoubtedly, I am already so strong, why does that old man still not admit that I am? Following Laxus's crazy roar and the lightning on his body soared, the impact of the wind also exploded around him. Undoubtedly, Demon Mira and Fairy Queen Elusha can't be my opponent at all. Even Kilda's father can't do anything to me, but that old man will only tell me that I am far from it. Far from it. Far from it. What do you mean by far from it? As if he had been suppressed for a long time, Laxus hysterically roared, and the lightning on his body became more and more intense. Undoubtedly, I am the strongest. The strongest. The violent lightning arc and the impact of the wind blew on Noah's body, but under the effect of a magic that was invisible to the naked eye, they were automatically split in half in front of Noah and blown to both sides. Noah quietly looked at the crazy Laxus, and his eyes gradually became fierce. Is that why you came to find trouble with me? In these 4 years, every time my strength grew, that old man would only say one sentence. Laxus looked at Noah with a somewhat ferocious expression. He said that your brother was born with a powerful magic that no one else could have, and that he learned super high-level destructive magic. When he comes back from his hard work, his strength will be very shocking. At that time, he might not even be a match for himself. Noah was silent for a while, and then he raised his head and looked at Laxus. So, you want to defeat me? Only by defeating you can I prove my strength. Laxus laughed maniacally as he spread his arms and shouted in an arrogant and unruly manner. Prove that I am the strongest in fairy tale. Hearing this, Noah looked at Laxus with a gaze that changed from calm to pity. Laxus was just a rebellious child who would never grow up. Laxus did not realize that Makarov's words were only to warn him not to be too arrogant. However, Laxus, who had a grudge against Makarov, completely twisted Makarov's warning, and saw it as suppression. Why didn't Laxus think about it? Makarov, who did not even have the ability to be self-reliant, adopted a child in fairy tale, and provided them with help. Indirectly, it could be considered as the kindness that brought them up. How could he deny the hard work of others? Noah took a deep breath and closed his eyes. If this is how you want to prove yourself, Noah's eyes, which had just closed, opened abruptly. A towering magic light pillar suddenly erupted around him, causing the surrounding atmosphere to shake and become chaotic. Then let me tell you how stupid your thinking is. The magic that was like a monstrous wave turned into a heavy pressure, causing Laxus to feel that his body had become heavy. However, Laxus was not shocked, and instead laughed crazily. That's right. This is how it should be. This is how it should be. Like a tit for tat, the violent lightning also turned into a pillar of lightning, and shot up to the sky from Laxus's body. In the next moment, the two brothers who had the same surname pressed their bodies, and like an arrow leaving the bow, rushed towards each other. Chapter 63. In fact, Noah did not want to fight with Laxus at all. Noah knew that the reason why Laxus had become so arrogant, looking down on others, and treating the weak as trash was because he had not handled his relationship with Makarov well. Laxus's father, who was also Makarov's son, was originally a member of Fairy Tail. However, this person did some damage to Fairy Tail and was expelled from the guild by Makarov. Because of this, the relationship between Laxus and Makarov became tense. This was because Laxus could not understand why Makarov would be so heartless to expel his son from the guild. Undoubtedly, they were family. Just as Noah thought, with that incident as the beginning, Laxus completely entered a rebellious period and his relationship with Makarov became tense. Even if this was not the case, Noah, who had lived under the same roof as Laxus and had interacted with Laxus many times, knew that Laxus's nature was not bad. However, not bad did not necessarily mean that it was good. At the very least, if Laxus was allowed to continue like this, even if Laxus's nature was not bad, sooner or later, he would walk on a path of no return. Noah knew that there was nothing he could do. Even Makarov could not make Laxus realize his mistakes, so Noah did not think that he could do it. However, if Laxus had to fight with him to realize what he was lacking, then Noah would definitely not mind. He wanted to defeat this arrogant monster who was much stronger than Mira and Alusha and who was almost as strong as Kilda's. With that determination, Noah slowly mixed the less than 10% of the mana that he had just used with the vast ocean-like mana in his body and mobilized it. This time, Noah wanted to use his full strength. Unfortunately, just as Noah and Raxus were about to collide with each other with monstrous mana and lightning, a furious roar sounded from the side. "Stop it!" As soon as he finished speaking, an abnormally huge arm that was comparable to a 10-meter-tall building with a clenched fist descended from the sky and smashed into Noah and Raxus, who were about to collide with each other. Noah and Raxus froze at the same time, then retreated explosively. Bang! The huge fist heavily smashed into the spot where Noah and Laxus would have collided if they had not stopped, stirring up dust and rubble, and creating a hole in the ground. Noah! Two figures suddenly flashed from the side and appeared beside Noah. It was Mira and Alusha who had returned. Even Lisanna ran over from afar and ran to Noah's side with an anxious look on her face. Laxus! At the same time, the same number of figures appeared from the side and came to Laxus's side. It was a group of 2 men and a woman. One of the men had long green hair and was dressed like a knight with a western sword at his waist. He stood in front of Laxus as if to protect him. His sharp eyes looked straight ahead and stared at Noah. The one who was taller than the knight with the western sword wore a somewhat strange style of clothes. His clothes even had a hood pulled up directly and covered his head like a hood. He also wore a helmet-like mask on his face that covered his eyes. As for the remaining woman, she had brown hair and was dressed like a formal dress. She was a tall girl with a tall figure. Noah glanced at the 3 people who appeared in front of Laxus and stood there like guards. Only then did he withdraw his gaze. At the same time, the huge fist in the middle of the field began to slowly retract. Finally, it returned to its owner's body and returned to its owner's body. It was Makarov. That was the magic that Makarov often used, gigantification. It was a magic that could make one's body gigantic, or a part of one's body gigantic, and thus have the destructive power of a giant. It could be said that it was synonymous with Makarov. Thus, when they saw the huge fist descending from the sky, Noah and Laxus knew that this fight was not going to happen. Tisk! Laxus clenched his fist so hard that his veins were about to pop out. "You want to hinder me again? Old man. Enough." Laxus. Alusha's sharp gaze shot straight at Laxus. "You're making a move here, are you trying to destroy the guild? You actually dare to bully your own brother? That's all you've got, Raxus." Mira looked at Raxus mockingly. "As soon as Noah came back, you hurriedly came looking for trouble. Are you that worried that Noah will grow stronger than you in these 4 years? Shut up." Mira Jenny. The man with the western sword on his waist had already made a sword-drawing gesture. "If you insult Laxus again, I will not be polite anymore." He he he. The man in the strange costume also laughed strangely. "If you want to provoke Laxus, it's too early for you. Mira, I don't mind letting you see how powerful my babies are. I want to fight with Alusha." The brown-haired girl standing next to the 2 men looked at Alusha provocatively and said with a somewhat narcissistic tone. "The title of Fairy Queen should be mine, I'm the real fairy." Freed. Bikesrow. Abarglin. Beside Noah, Lisanna, who was checking whether Noah was injured, glanced at the 3 people standing in front of Laxus and called out their names one by one in surprise. "Why is Thor Clan also here? Want to fight? Thor Clan." Mira took a step forward and raised her fingers, the expression on her face was slightly terrifying. Those who were familiar with Mira should be able to see that she was really angry. "I won't be merciful." "Enough." Makarov finally spoke, his eyes fixed on Laxus. "Laxus, I won't pursue tonight's matter as long as you go back now." "Did I do anything wrong?" Laxus sneered. "It's just a duel with a family that hasn't happened in a long time. didn't you always say that he's stronger than me? Then let him fight me. You. Mira, Lisanna, and Elisha opened their mouths as if wanting to say something, but they were stopped by Noah. Gently pressing down on Lisanna's hand on his arm, Noah stepped forward and looked past Mira and Elisha to Laxus. If you still want to continue, I can accompany you at any time, but let me give you a piece of advice. You know how powerful Crush is, I don't have the confidence to hold back. Hearing Noah's shameless words, Freed, Bikesro, and Abarglin's faces were filled with anger. Laxus looked at Makarov with an uncertain expression, then at Fairy's Tail behind him. He smacked his lips in anger and glared at Noah. Listen well, sooner or later, I will prove that I am the strongest existence in Fairy's Tail. Laxus pointed at Noah as if declaring war. It doesn't matter if it's you or that old man, one day, I will trample all of you under my feet. Leaving those words behind, Laxus picked up the coat that had fallen on the ground, turned around, and left the scene. The 3 members of the Thor clan immediately followed him. Seeing Laxus's figure slowly disappear into the distance, Mira, Elisha, and Lisanna, as well as Makarov, remained silent for a long time. Only Noah, who clearly saw Laxus glance in the direction of Fairy's Tail, calmed down and muttered. One day, you will understand that what you should strive for the most is not the title of the strongest. Chapter 64. The next day, Fairy's Tail, Lisanna, who had just woken up Noah, stared at Noah with a gaze that seemed to materialize. This gave Noah, who had just woken up for less than a second, a huge fright. Noah hurriedly looked at himself, and after finding that there was nothing strange about him, he reached out his hand and touched his cheek. Then, he asked doubtfully, You're right. I didn't have that dream this time, and I didn't cry, right? No. Lisanna rebuked. I was looking to see if you were injured anywhere, brother Noah. Injured? Lisanna's words not only did not make Noah feel relieved, but instead made him even more confused. Why would I be injured? Isn't this natural? Lisanna raised a finger and made a teaching gesture. Undoubtedly, you had such an intense fight with that Laxus last night, so it's normal for you to be injured, right? Are you sure you'll get hurt just because you fought with Laxus? Noah grumbled. He stood up, walked to the wardrobe, and picked up some clothes. Laxus's level last night was not enough to injure me. Oh. Lisanna was a little surprised. Laxus is very strong. Not only is he older than Sister Mira and Elisha, but he has also been an S-rank archmage for longer than Sister Mira and Elisha. Brother Noah, are you so confident that you can win against Laxus? And in a state where you are not injured? What you saw last night was only on the surface. It looked like we were fighting fiercely, but in fact, the fight before you arrived was just a warm-up. Noah took out his clothes and began to change. Laxus was just about to use his full strength when you arrived. So, with Laxus's previous level of strength, there was no way he could injure me. Although Laxus's strength before he used the Dragon Slayer magic was very strong, even comparable to Mira and Elisha, Noah did not think much of him. For years of continuous and undistracted training. Just like what Makarov had said, Noah's strength had increased immeasurably due to his innate conditions that were much better than others. Although he wasn't sure how strong Laxus could be if he used his full strength, Noah felt that without using the Dragon Slayer magic, Laxus did not have the ability to injure him. Such an assertion naturally left Lisanna speechless. She walked behind Noah and smiled sweetly as she helped him put on his clothes. Brother Noah seems to have changed. Noah didn't refuse her service and asked in confusion. How have I changed? Ha. After helping Noah put on his clothes, she walked up to Noah and raised her head, tiptoed, and put her cute face less than 10 centimeters away from Noah's face. Her big eyes blinked. I feel that brother Noah has become more confident than before. If it was the old Noah, even if he had a lot of confidence, he wouldn't say it out loud. At least, he would be humble. I'm also very humble now. You don't understand Laxus's strength. That level of strength is really no different from a warm-up exercise for him. Do you think I'll get injured because of Laxus's warm-up exercise? Being so close to her, Noah was almost scared out of his wits. He could only uncomfortably push her face away to keep a distance from him. Even if I'm not an S-ranked archmage, can you have a little more confidence in me? Then, Brother Noah, tell me. Lysana said excitedly. How strong have you become now? Are you still as strong as Sister Mira and Elisha? Noah smiled slightly, waved his hand, and walked out of the room. You want to know? Then please look forward to it. Brother Noah. Lysana chased after Noah angrily and pestered him as they walked downstairs together. Noah. Let's have a showdown. Bang! An impassioned roar and a muffled sound rang out almost at the same time. Then, the Dragon Slayer Archmage laid on the ground with a big bump on his head and couldn't move. Naz. Habby flew to Naz's body and jumped there exaggeratedly. How did you get killed in one hit again? Luo. Sue. Naz's weak voice came from the ground. Whoa. Gray, who had taken off all his clothes except for a pair of shorts, shuddered and looked at Noah with fear in his eyes. Noah, why are you still so scary? You're still as strong as before. Elisha also walked over with a light smile on her face as usual, but there was also a trace of fighting spirit in her eyes when she looked at Noah. When are you going to compete with me? Forget about Elisha. Of course, this sentence was not said by Noah, but by Mira, who had come over at some point. The one who can beat Noah must be me. It's me. Elisha stared at Mira. It's me. Mira also stared at Elisha. The atmosphere between the two of them became tense. Their heads were pressed together, and they looked like fiends, giving Lysana a headache. Are we going to fight again? Can't we talk about fighting later? Noah also spoke up, separating Mira and Elisha with one hand each. I have something to ask you. Can you stop for a while? Humph. Mira snorted and turned her head away. Ahem. Elisha coughed twice and became serious. What do you want to ask? It's about the 3 people who appeared in front of Laxus last night. I remember you saying that they're from Thor's order, right? Noah stroked his chin. Is there such a party in our guild? Sometimes, sorcerers would come across a mission that was difficult for them to complete alone. At that time, they would usually form a party to carry out the mission. Through cooperation, they would obtain high rewards. Apart from that, sorcerers who were on good terms with each other would also form their own party and work together. Of course, there were quite a few teams in Fairy Tale as well. However, Noah had never heard of Thor's order. It was possible that he had, but after 4 years, he had almost forgotten about it. Thor's order is indeed a party, but it's not an ordinary one, Elisha explained with a serious expression. Fried, Bixro, and Alba Jerlin. These 3 formed their own personal guards. Personal guards? Noah stopped stroking his chin. Laxus's personal guards. That's right. The one who answered Noah was Lysana. Her expression was also a little serious. Although it's only a party of 3, whether it's Fried, Bixro, or Alba Jerlin, they're all very powerful sorcerers. In the guild, apart from the S-rank sorcerers, I think that only Naz and Gray can defeat any one of them alone. I can take care of a party like that all by myself. Myra's lips curled into a terrifying arc. I've long found Laxus an eyesore. Taking care of his personal guards shouldn't be a bad idea. Stop it. It's fine if it's just a small fight, but if it's serious, the chairman won't allow it. Elisha shook her head and looked at Noah. Speaking of parties, Noah, could it be that you want to form a party with someone? When Elisha said this, Lysana's eyes instantly shone, and Myra's shoulders trembled imperceptibly. Those who were on good terms with each other in the guild would form parties. Mira, Lysana, and Elfman were siblings, so it was impossible for them not to form a party. Therefore, Disbanding the party was not very likely, but if they were to pull someone in, hey, big brother Noah. Lisa tugged at Noah's sleeve with a face full of hope. Why don't you join our party? Join your team, huh? Noah muttered to himself. Chapter 65. In the past 4 years, Noah had been living in the wild, deep in the mountains and forests. He ate wild game and fruits, drank spring water and streams, and lived in stone and wooden houses. However, it wasn't as if he didn't need money. For example, he had to wear bigger clothes as he grew taller, black beads to train his mana control, and all sorts of potions to maintain his magical swords. They were all things that couldn't be found in the wilderness. Noah's savings had long been depleted after 4 years of expenses, and the money he had left wouldn't even last him a few days. Ever since Noah officially accepted missions from the guild and started working, Noah had refused all living expenses from Makarov. He was truly starting to take charge of the guild. If he didn't think of a way to work, Noah might really have to borrow money from others. That was why her words reminded Noah that it was time for him to start working again. As for forming a party, Noah didn't have the intention to do so. I'm sorry, I don't want to join your family's team so abruptly, Noah rejected straightforwardly. That's why, for the time being, let me be alone. She called out unwillingly. What's the matter? Big brother Noah will become a family with us sooner or later anyway. Cough, cough, cough. Mira immediately started coughing violently as if she had been choked. Become a family? Elisha looked at Noah strangely. Oh! Gray and Naz both cried out. Something's going on. Habi purposely curled his tongue and spoke in an ambiguous tone. Even Kana, who was drinking at the side, spat out a mouthful of wine. Elfman also slipped from his chair and cried out in pain. You! What nonsense are you talking about? Noya's expression had already stiffened. Sensing that the gazes from the surroundings had become piercing, he pretended to glare at her angrily. Why would I become a family with you? Because. Lisanna held her cheeks shyly. Big brother Noah, you've already seen me and big sister Mira. Woo woo woo. Before Lisanna could finish her sentence, Mira, who was blushing, covered her mouth. I've seen you and Mira, what? Around them, a group of curious little friends all gathered with shining eyes. However, before they could surround her, they were met with Myra's angry roar. What's there to be curious about? Get out of my way. Wow! The group of little friends immediately scattered like birds and beasts. It was only then that Mira looked at Noah, whose expression had once again stiffened, with a red face, and said with a grimace. If anyone else finds out about what happened that day, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. After saying that, Mira grabbed Lisanna, whose mouth she had covered, and walked away, ignoring Lisanna's struggles. Of course, Noah, who had sharpened his 5 senses due to years of training, could vaguely hear the conversation between the two girls. Idiot Lisanna, why did you mention what happened back then? What does it have to do with anything? I really want to become a family with big brother Noah anyway. You. Do you really want to marry that fellow that much? Don't you want to, big sister Mira? WH. What kind of question is that? Of course I don't want to. Hee, big sister Mira, you can fool others, but you can't fool me. Undoubtedly, every night when I go to bed, I call out big brother Noah's name, you. You shut up. Lisanna. Noah, who was behind them, couldn't hear them very clearly, but he could clearly see Myra's blushing face as she teased Lisanna. At that moment, he felt a little helpless. Many of us in the guild are childhood sweethearts who bathed together when we were young, right? Why is it that if I see my childhood sweetheart naked, it'll turn into a scene where I have to get married? With such thoughts in mind, Noah held his throbbing head and went to the board where the requests were posted, looking for a job that suited him. However, before Noah could find a job that suited him, a voice interrupted Noah from behind. Noah? Is that Noah? The voice that came from behind Noah was a very tender and sweet girl's voice. Noah turned his head and looked behind him. Behind Noah, a girl stood side by side with two men, imprinting themselves into Noah's eyes. The girl was about the same age as Lisanna, around 15 years old. However, she was very petite and had light blue shoulder-length hair that was tied up with a hairpin. As for the two men, one was wearing a very tall hat, while the other had a strange hairstyle that looked like a whale's tail. Looking at the three of them who were looking at him in surprise, Noah blinked his eyes. After a while, he found 3 figures and 3 names from 4 years ago that matched the 3 of them in front of him in his memory. He then asked with uncertainty. Sir, I'm not sure about that. Lebby? Jed? Troy? Noah? It's really you. The petite girl named Lebby was pleasantly surprised as she walked up to Noah and circled around him. Everyone in the guild said that you're back. I thought they were teasing me again. Speaking of which, you're much taller than you were 4 years ago. Hearing this, Noah smiled more or less and reached out his hand to pat Lebby's head. You've grown a lot taller too, but you're still as petite as before. Lebby. Her full name was Lebby Marcogadon. Like Noah, she had joined Fairy Tale rather early. Not long after Noah joined Fairy Tale, they got to know each other. Jed and Troy, who were standing behind her, were her childhood friends who grew up with her. It was because of these 2 childhood friends that Lebby rarely interacted with Noah or the other children in the guild. Otherwise, Lebby would have become Noah's childhood playmate. On the other hand, Elisha, who lived in the same female dormitory as Lebby, had a good relationship with Lebby. Back then, it was also because of Elisha that Noah and Lebby got to know each other. Don't touch my head. Lebby slapped Noah's hand away. Also, I'm not young anymore. You're the one who grew too fast. Noah could not help but laugh. Just as he was about to make fun of Lebby, 2 resentful voices began to rise from the side. Damn it, he actually touched Lebby's head so intimately, I'm so envious. No, it's so annoying. Of course, Jed and Troy were the only ones who were muttering to themselves. Both of them were childhood friends of Lebby. Now that he looked at it, it seemed that they had formed a small team with Lebby. However, just like when they were young, they did not know how to hide their emotions. After all, anyone who knew these 2 people would know that they had been secretly in love with Lebby for a long time. At that moment, Noah could only shrug and walk away from Lebby. Seeing that you guys are so energetic, I'm relieved. Well then, I'll continue to look for a job. Wait. Seeing that Noah was about to leave, Lebby wanted to say something but was interrupted by Makarov, who was sitting cross-legged at the bar. Noah. Come here for a moment. All right. Noah nodded and walked towards Makarov. This made Lebby swallow her words and an angry expression appeared on her face. Just like before, leaving after a few sentences. Don't tell me you don't want to talk to me that much. Noah is also very busy. Jed quickly said. Let's not disturb him. After all, he's been as powerful as Mira and Elisha since young. Troy said resentfully. He's not from the same world as us. Lebby snorted softly and muttered to herself as she stared at Noah's back as he walked towards the bar. The more you ignore me, the more I'll pester you. Let's see what you can do. It was not that Noah ignored Lebby, he just did not want to disturb Jed and Troy's relationship. If Jed and Troy knew that Lebby had purposely approached Noah because of their relationship, how would they feel? Chapter 66. Grandpa. Noah came to the bar and stood in front of Makarov, who was sitting cross-legged. His eyes were fixed on Makarov. Do you need something from me? Noah, Makarov took a sip of wine and said drunkenly. Do you have something to do now? I was just about to go out to work. Noah scratched his cheek. But if Grandpa has something for me to do, I can postpone it for 1 or 2 days. Work? Makarov nodded. That's good. I have a commission here that I hope you can complete. Commission? Noah was slightly stunned. What kind of commission does Grandpa need to find someone to complete it? Even though only S-rank archmages could accept the extremely difficult and dangerous missions posted on the commission board on the second floor, Makarov only posted the commission orders there. Anyone who wanted to accept those missions would have to go to the second floor to tear down the commission orders and bring them to Makarov for him to look over. Even when the council wanted someone to complete a commission, Makarov directly posted it on the commission board before suggesting Noah to do it. He had never seen the commission order before Makarov found someone to complete it. Well, this commission doesn't need a commission order, Makarov seemed to have seen through Noah's doubts and explained. That's because I'm the one who posted it. It's a spontaneous request from Fairy Tale. A commission issued by Grandpa? Noah was stunned. Makarov drank all the wine in the cup in his hand, and his expression became serious. Actually, I hope you can make a trip to the holy land of Fairy Tale Celestial Wolf Island. Celestial Wolf Island? Noah frowned. Noah had been a member of Fairy Tale for quite some time. Naturally, it was impossible for him not to have heard of this island that was very special to Fairy Tale. Just as Makarov said, Celestial Wolf Island was the holy land of Fairy Tale. Only those who had the Fairy Tale emblem could enter the island. It was said that there were legends of fairies living on Celestial Wolf Island. Hence, Celestial Wolf Island had another name, Fairy Island. The outer area of the island and the ground contained extremely strong magic, so it was not easy to be discovered by outsiders. As for Heavenly Wolf Island, it was also the resting place of the first guild leader of Fairy Tale. Although only the members of Fairy Tale could enter such a special place, since it was a holy land and the resting place of the first chairman, how could Makarov allow anyone to casually enter? Because of this, although the members of Fairy Tale knew that there was a very special holy land in the guild, the only ones who had actually been to Celestial Wolf Island were Makarov and Kildas, who had been a member of the guild for a long time and was an S-rank magic shooter. What's wrong? Noah keenly felt that Makarov's so-called commission was not that simple. Did something happen on Celestial Wolf Island? It's precisely because we don't know that we need someone to go to Celestial Wolf Island to take a look. Makarov also frowned. Celestial Wolf Island is a very special place. Although it is an island, the surrounding area and the ground contain extremely powerful mana, making it difficult for the outside world to discover Celestial Wolf Island. But because of this, it would not be strange if something happened on the island. I received a few reports from the outside world saying that someone accidentally discovered a very special island while fishing at sea. According to the description, it is very likely to be the holy land of our guild, Celestial Wolf Island. Makarov's expression was solemn. So, I suspect that the mana on Celestial Wolf Island might have some degree of disorder, causing Celestial Wolf Island to appear in the eyes of the outside world. Mana disorder. Noah repeated softly. After a while, he nodded. Grandfather, do you want me to find a way to restore the mana on Celestial Wolf Island to its original flow? That might not necessarily be the case. It is very possible that some other problem has occurred. I hope that you can go to Celestial Wolf Island and take a look. It would be best if you can resolve the problem. If you can't, find out the cause and bring back the information you need. Makarov said as he looked at Noah. This is a request from our guild. Naturally, the remuneration will be paid by the guild. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Grandfather, what are you talking about? Noah smiled bitterly. Since it is an internal problem, there is no need to talk about remuneration. I'll set out tomorrow and make a trip to Celestial Wolf Island. Is that so? Makarov smiled, not bothering to be courteous or draw a clear line between himself and Noah. I understand. Just be careful. Noah shrugged. He then began to consider his departure for Celestial Wolf Island tomorrow. Seeing Noah deep in thought by himself, Makarov silently walked away, leaving Noah alone in front of the bar, deep in thought. After an unknown amount of time, Noah softly muttered to himself. Celestial Wolf Island. At this moment, Noah's heart fiercely skipped a beat. As if something had smashed into his head, his mind went blank, and his eyes lost focus. Then, Noah felt his consciousness gradually drift away. Vaguely, Noah saw such a scene. Before him was a boundless sea. On the sea was an island. It was an island with a very peculiar appearance. On this peculiar island, a gigantic tree with a crown that was 2/3 the size of the island stood in the center. It was as if two islands, one big and one small, were stacked on top of each other. Just based on its appearance, it was very easy to think of a place like paradise. Under the gigantic tree, there was a large forest. In the forest, there were many peculiar creatures. There was a creature that looked like a boar, but was taller than a building. There was a creature that looked like a dinosaur, but could walk on 2 legs. There was a creature that looked like a gorilla, but had a tongue that was longer than a snake. There was a creature that looked like a bird, but had no wings at all. It relied on crawling to move. All kinds of peculiar creatures gathered on such a peculiar island, turning the originally peculiar island into a dreamy paradise, making one's heart surge. Then, the scene in front of Noah changed again, into another place. That should be one of the places on the island. Noah didn't know where this place was, but he clearly saw it. At the very front, there was a tomb. On the tomb, there was a tablet. In the middle of the tablet, there was something that was burning like a golden flame. Something that made Noah's heart tremble was suspended inside. A feather. To be precise, it should be a broken and dim feather. It was such an inconspicuous feather, but it made Noah's emotions fluctuate the most in the 7 years since he was born. That was because Noah had seen the same thing before. Furthermore, it was more than once. It was in the white dream that Noah often had. Noah suddenly woke up, and the focus in his eyes converged at an extremely fast speed. His brain also returned to the state of operation, but his heart was still beating violently. Ha! 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 As if he had just had a nightmare, Noah was sweating profusely and gasping for breath. He covered his forehead, and his eyes were constantly fluctuating. Just now. What was that? The sudden experience made Noah stay in place for a long time, and there was no way for him to return to his senses. Illusion. Although he said so, his intuition told Noah that the scene he just saw was definitely not an illusion. After a long time, Noah calmed his breathing, raised his head, and looked through the window, into the distance. Heavenly Wolf Island. Chapter 67. The next day, as soon as the sun rose, Noah woke up early. He put on his clothes and took out his magic night sword. He unsheathed the sword and used a clean cloth to wipe the sword. Magic weapons were made of precious materials that allowed magic to circulate. Some of the weapons were even embedded with magic crystals, so their durability was higher than ordinary weapons and they were not easily damaged. However, this did not mean that they would not be damaged. Otherwise, Noah wouldn't have had to return to Magnolia to buy potions for maintenance and durability restoration during his 4 years of cultivation. In particular, Noah's magic night sword was not an ordinary magic weapon. It had the ability to freely control a range of 100 meters. It was an extremely rare and powerful magic. If it was sold, it would definitely fetch a sky-high price. However, this was not strange. After all, this magic night sword wasn't just a precious magic weapon that was kept by Makarov, one of the 10 great Saint Magi. Because it had been kept for a long time, it was impossible to find another magic weapon with the same effect. Just like antiques, they didn't need to be expensive to make. However, they were old, and the more rare they were, the more expensive they would be. Naturally, the originally precious magic night swords would become even more precious. Makarov was willing to give such a precious item to Noah. It was clear that his feelings for Noah were not fake. It was precisely because of this that even if he did not use it much, Noah would wipe the sword clean every once in a while, just like how he was doing now. But it was a pity that this time, Noah didn't wake up early to wipe his weapon for such a trivial reason. This time, the reason why Noah woke up early in the morning to clean his weapon was only because of his mentality. Heavenly Wolf Island. Fairy tale, is the holy land of the fairy tale. Next, Noah would go to this place where the members of fairy tale might not even be able to enter in their lifetime. He would investigate the reason why Heavenly Wolf Island was discovered by the outside world. Of course, Noah's main goal was not this. The graveyard on the island. Noah was very concerned about the scene he saw in the illusion yesterday. It was because of this mentality that Noah was so cautious in maintaining his weapon. He had to verify it. Was the hallucination that he suddenly saw yesterday a real scene? For this, Noah had to make a trip to Heavenly Wolf Island. After some time, when the sky outside the window became brighter and the guild's first floor became noisy again, the door to Noah's room was gently pushed open. Big Brother Noah. Lysana, who had just entered, was stunned when she saw Noah wiping his weapon. "You're up. What's wrong?" Noah said grumpily. "Do you find it unbelievable that I'm up?" "That's not it." She retracted her surprised expression and walked to Noah's side. "Why are you up so early today?" "I have to go out on a mission." Noah explained simply. "Although there's no time limit, I feel that it's better to leave as soon as possible. So, I'm using this time to maintain my weapon." "Big Brother Noah, are you going out to work?" Lysana asked curiously. "What kind of work is it?" "It's just an ordinary investigation," Noah replied casually as he continued wiping his weapon. "However, the location is Heavenly Wolf Island." "Heavenly Wolf Island?" Lysana's eyes lit up. "The Heavenly Wolf Island, that's our guild's sacred ground?" Noah was still nodding his head nonchalantly, but Lysana was excited. "I've never been to our guild's sacred ground." "Big Brother Noah, what kind of island do you think Heavenly Wolf Island is?" "Is it called Heavenly Wolf Island because there are many wolves there?" "You're asking me? Who am I supposed to ask?" Noah rolled his eyes. "Don't forget that this is my first time going to Heavenly Wolf Island as well." "That's right," Lysana's eyes darted around as she approached Noah with a smile. "Big Brother Noah, since this is your first time going to Heavenly Wolf Island, you should be at a loss for what to do, right? What are you up to now?" Noah looked at Lysana warily. "Don't tell me you're thinking of using all sorts of excuses to persuade me to give up my job and force me to go on a mission with you, just like when we were young?" "I'm not that bad," Lysana said indignantly. "I just want you to bring me along." "Bring you along?" Noah was stunned. "Don't you have to work?" "Big Brother Elfie and I can rest today," Lysana said as she tapped her cheeks with her finger. Big Sister Myra's breasts seemed to have grown bigger recently, so she went out to buy new underwear. "How enviable. You don't have to explain that to me so clearly." Noah's hand trembled, and he almost stabbed himself with his magic knight sword. This made Noah angry and annoyed. "If Mira finds out that you're revealing her private secrets like this, you're dead meat." "Hee, Big Sister Mira loves me the most. She won't do anything to me." "Big Brother Noah, don't be shy," Lysana teased with a mischievous smile, not giving Noah a chance to retort. "In any case, Big Brother Noah, you have to bring me along this time. I'm very curious about Heavenly Wolf Island." "You lass." Noah facepalmed helplessly. "Don't get in the way of my work." "I won't." Lysana pounced to Noah's side and hugged his arm. "Thank you, Big Brother Noah. I like you the most." Sigh. Noah could only sigh and resolve himself. Lysana was, without a doubt, the person Noah was closest to. However, from a certain perspective, this mischievous lass was Noah's weakness. Yet, Noah couldn't bring himself to hate her. He really didn't know what to do. "Hey, Lysana, are you really not going to wait for Big Sister to come back?" Elfman's boorish face was filled with worry as he watched Lysana, who was humming a tune as she packed her luggage. If big sister finds out that you're going out without telling her, she'll be very angry. That can't be helped. Big sister Mira isn't here right now, Lisanna replied without turning her head. Moreover, this is a rare opportunity to work alone with big brother Noah. Even though I'm sorry to big sister Mira, the secret to capturing a man's heart is knowing how to grasp the opportunity, huh? With Elfman's nerves that were as thick as tree roots, he naturally couldn't understand the meaning behind Lisanna's words. What do you mean by that? What I mean is that I won't give my love rival a chance. Lisanna winked mischievously. If big sister Mira finds out, she'll definitely come along. So, I'm sorry, big brother Elfman. Let me be willful this time. At the same time, Noah, who was carrying the Magic Knight's sword on his back, also came down from the stairs. He shouted weakly as he walked out of the door. Lisanna. I won't wait for you if you don't come. I'm coming. Lisanna hurriedly picked up her bag and chased after Noah. That's it, big brother Elfman. Goodbye. Lisanna. Be careful. Elfman hurriedly shouted at Noah and Lisanna's backs. Noah. I'll leave Lisanna to you. Got it. With that reply, Noah and Lisanna walked out of the guild's doors and disappeared into the sea of people outside. Wait. Mira only appeared when the two disappeared into the sea of people. She looked at Noah and Lisanna's disappearing figures with a face full of anger. Remember this. Era. Katana, who was drinking, sighed with emotion. It's good to be young. Chapter 68. Crash. The sound of waves crashing reverberated through the sky. Coo! Coo! The cries of seagulls were mixed in with the crashing of the waves, clearly spreading to every corner. The noon sun was like a huge furnace, releasing unbearable heat, causing the air to distort, causing one's vision to become blurry. It was extremely unbearable. In such an unbearable environment, a ship that was neither too big nor too small, but was the size of an entire floor of a building, slowly sailed over from afar. It swayed up and down along with the rolling waves, moving straight ahead. Noah and Lisanna were on the deck of the ship. However, their attire was completely different from when they first set off. At this time, Noah was only wearing a pair of shorts. His strong and powerful bulging muscles were directly exposed to the air. He stood at the bow of the deck and looked into the distance. Behind Noah, Lisanna was sitting on a chair. She was wearing a white bikini swimsuit that matched her hair color very well. The edges of the swimsuit were inlaid with patterns, giving people a feeling that it was not too sexy. Instead, it was more of a cute and playful style. It's so hot. Lisanna held a bottle of iced drink to her face. She could feel the coldness gradually fading away. Her delicate and cute face was covered in sweat while a faint blush appeared on it due to the sun's exposure to it. Why is it so hot? Noah, who was standing on the deck, was also sweating profusely under the fierce sunlight, but his expression was not as gloomy as Lisanna's. It was as though he was used to such an environment as he replied to her. I heard the captain say that due to the currents in this area, the weather is like this all year round. So, before we reach Celestial Wolf Island, just bear with it for a while, Lisanna. But it's really hot, Lisanna said reluctantly, her voice revealing a sense of helplessness. Big brother Noah, don't you feel the heat? Of course it's hot, but I'm used to it. Noah responded intermittently. His eyes were still looking into the distance, looking at the scene where the sky and the sea were separated from each other. When I was training outside, the summer heat in the mountains, forests, and wilderness was about the same as it is now. I wasn't used to it at first, but I got used to it after I got used to it. Hearing that, Lisanna finally raised her head and looked in Noah's direction, taking in the sight of Noah's muscular physique. Perhaps it was because of the 4 years of hard work and the training of his body, Noah had indeed developed a very robust physique. There was almost no excess fat on his body, the perfect amount of muscles on Noah's arms, thighs, abdomen, chest, and other areas were all displayed. At first glance, not only did he look very masculine, he also gave off an indescribable sense of security and pleasing to the eye. Looking at him directly, it was easy for others to get the impression that he was very strong. If Noah were to put on clothes, he would look no different from a teenager with a normal physique. This was also the reason why Noah's training was very regular and planned. Otherwise, like running with a boulder to warm up every day, Noah would have become a complete muscle man. Lisanna was almost intoxicated by the sight. When she came back to her senses, a new blush appeared on her face. She quickly turned her head and said embarrassedly, "From the looks of it, Big Brother Noah has indeed grown up." Hearing Lisanna's words, Noah turned his head and looked in Lisanna's direction, taking in Lisanna's bikini swimsuit. Because she was afraid of being hurt by the sun, Lisanna put on sunscreen after changing into the swimsuit. Now, under the illumination of the sun, Lisanna's skin, which was covered with sunscreen, revealed an extremely white luster. Although it couldn't be said to be as white as snow, it shone like a pearl, attracting the eyes of others. Her figure wasn't tall, but it was very well proportioned. Her chest wasn't full, but under the contrast of the swimsuit, it was constantly showing off her existence. Especially when the glimpse of the seductive thighs from the chest position swayed in front of Noah's eyes, it gave Noah a great stimulation. So, even if Noah wasn't shy to the extent of blushing like Lisanna, he couldn't help but look away with an uncomfortable expression. "You're the same, aren't you?" The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became quite awkward. Realizing that the atmosphere had become awkward, Lisanna hurriedly shook her head. Just as she was about to use her mischievous ability to change the topic, she inadvertently caught a glimpse of the scene in front of the ship. After being stunned for a moment, she stood up and pointed forward. "Big Brother Noah. Look there." Hearing Lisanna's pleasantly surprised words, Noah turned his head almost subconsciously. Then, like Lisanna, he was stunned for a moment. On the sea not far in front of the ship, there was a strange island there. It was an island, and there seemed to be a smaller island stacked on top of it. In the center stood a very tall and sturdy tree with a very magnificent crown. Noah saw such a strange island yesterday. It was in the sudden illusion. Serious tree. Looking at the huge tree, Noah murmured, "Looks like that Sirius Island. Are we finally here?" Lisanna rushed forward and hugged Noah's arm, shouting excitedly, "Big Brother Noah. Let's go up quickly. We haven't reached the shore yet, how are we going to get up there?" Being hugged by Lisanna, who was only wearing a swimsuit, Noah's body stiffened for a moment. Feeling the soft and smooth skin on his arm and the unusually stimulating softness, he raised his voice a little. "At least wait until the ship reaches the shore. This ship is too slow. Let's watch me." Lisanna didn't know if she had noticed Noah's unnatural behavior, but she let go of his arm and her beautiful body in her swimsuit spun in front of Noah. "Take over." Suddenly, a dazzling light burst from Lisanna's beautiful body, illuminating Noah's face. Whoosh! A pair of wings appeared from the light and flapped vigorously. The next moment, a black shadow rose from the light and flew into the sky. It was a bird with beautiful green feathers. The size of a bird was about the same as a human's, but when it spread its wings, it was at least twice the size of a human. The bird circled in the sky once before descending and flying to the front of the ship, reaching the same height as the deck. Then, Lisanna's voice sounded from the bird's mouth. "Let's go. Big Brother Noah. I'll take you there." Seeing this scene, Noah was a little surprised. "I didn't think that after 4 years, Lisanna would be able to accept the soul of an animal of this size." Evidently, Noah wasn't the only one who had worked hard to train and grow in the past 4 years. Everyone else was also growing at their own pace. Including Lisanna. Thinking of this, Noah smiled knowingly. He stomped on the ground and leaped up, landing firmly on the back of the bird that Lisanna had transformed into. "Let's go. Sit tight." Lisanna immediately replied with a cheerful voice and flew in the direction of Celestial Wolf Island. Celestial Wolf Island. Whoa! Looking at the large forest in front of her and the unknown light source floating in the forest like a firefly, Lysana let out a cry of surprise. Is this Celestial Wolf Island? At the side, Noah frowned, tiptoed and stepped on the ground. Just like the rumors, the earth and air are filled with amazing magic. Not only that. Noah and Lysana quickly discovered that something strange was happening in their bodies. Chapter 69. Hey, big brother Noah. Lysana's pretty face was filled with hesitation and uncertainty. Did our mana get stronger? I thought it was just my imagination. Noah closed his eyes and felt the vast sea of mana in his body before nodding. Although it's only a very small amount, I can feel that my mana has indeed gotten stronger. Big brother Noah already has a very strong mana, so it's not strange that your mana has grown so little. However, I feel that my mana has increased by about 1/10, Lysana said in surprise. Could it be that this is also because we've entered Celestial Wolf Island? That's probably it. Noah turned his gaze to the huge tree in front of them, the towering Celestial Wolf tree at the center of Celestial Wolf Island. I can feel that the mana in our bodies is being transmitted from the direction of the Celestial Wolf tree. It should be a blessing from the Celestial Wolf tree. To be more precise, it should be a blessing from the Celestial Wolf tree for the members of Fairy Tale. There was one more thing that Noah didn't say. That was, Noah could clearly feel that the portion of mana that was transmitted to him by the Sirius tree was now turning into Noah's own mana at an extremely fast speed, and was added to Noah's already vast mana. Originally, this portion of mana that was being amplified from the outside world should have automatically retreated after Noah left Celestial Wolf Island. However, it was now being completely absorbed by Noah. As for the reason, Noah also knew. 4 years ago, Makarov had said that Noah's constitution was very special, possessing 3 unique characteristics. The first was that he was immune to and could eliminate all negative effects and side effects that indirectly affected Noah's body. The second was that he could absorb all powers that didn't originally belong to Noah into his body, including powers that didn't originally belong to Noah. The third was that he could recover his own mana. Now, the magic that had been amplified by the Sirius tree after entering Sirius Island should have triggered the second characteristic of Noah's constitution. Therefore, all of that mana was tyrannically taken over by Noah's special physique, and benefited the possessor, namely Noah himself. Although the increase in mana was nothing to Noah, who had a relatively strong mana to begin with, it would take a person 1 or 2 years of cultivation to obtain this amount of mana. For Noah to be able to obtain such benefits out of thin air, it was already not bad. At this moment, Noah relied on his outstanding sensory ability to sense that something was wrong. For a period of time, the astonishing magic power contained within the Heavenly Wolf Island suddenly seemed to become chaotic and began to flow chaotically. This is... Noah was surprised. He squatted down, put his hand on the ground, and began to sense seriously. Seeing this, she understood that Noah had begun his work and seemed to have discovered something. She immediately shut her mouth and watched silently from the side. However, just because she didn't disturb him didn't mean that other existences would obediently watch from the side. Woo! Following a long and drawn-out chant, a huge head poked out from between the tall trees on the side of the forest. It was a strange creature with a neck longer than a python's, a head that resembled a fish's, 4 limbs like an elephant's, and a shell-less tortoise's body. While it wasn't a magical creature that specialized in attacking humans, the ferocious glint in its eyes when it stared at Noah and Lysana told them that it wasn't a herbivore. Woo! The fish-headed, elephant-legged, tortoise-bodied creature let out a whistle-like roar again. Like a charging mountain, it crushed the ground and trees as it charged toward Noah and Lysana. Woo! Lysana's expression changed, but she didn't panic. Seeing that Noah didn't seem to have any intention of attacking, the courage in her heart burst forth. She passed by Noah and charged towards the strange creature. Take over. The light of magic flashed on her slender body. In the blink of an eye, her silhouette began to elongate at an extremely fast speed. Then, a bloated, purple-furred rabbit with a napkin around its neck charged out of the light and crashed into the strange creature. Thud! With a muffled sound, the strange creature let out a pained cry. Its charging giant body was stopped in its tracks. Ah! Lisanna, who had transformed into a giant rabbit, also let out a cry of pain. She couldn't help but take a few steps back, causing the ground to tremble. Woo! The strange creature's howl had begun to carry some anger. Its python-like neck suddenly shot out like an arrow, bouncing in front of Lisanna, who couldn't react in time and twirling around her like a rope. In the next second, the strange creature tightened its neck and tied up Lisanna, who had transformed into a purple-furred rabbit. Woo! Its fish-like head aimed directly at Lisanna's face. The strange creature opened its mouth, revealing rows of fangs that were sharper than those of a crocodile. It bit down hard on Lisanna's face. Lisanna only had time to close her eyes as if she had been shot. Soon after, a crisp sound of a sword rang out. Clang! Woo! The strange creature's pained cry entered Lisanna's ears. At the same time, Lisanna felt the long neck binding her disappear. She hurriedly opened her eyes and saw the strange creature running towards the forest as if it had seen its natural predator. Thud, thud, thud. 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 Are you all right? Noah slowly sheathed his sword in the scabbard in his pouch as if nothing had happened. Phew. Lisanna breathed a sigh of relief. Her body returned to its original state in a burst of magical light, but she looked a little dejected. In the end, Big Brother Noah still had to make a move. So you still want to deal with that strange creature yourself? Noah patted Lisanna's smooth shoulder and smiled. According to my judgment, while that fellow is a little ugly, there aren't many in our guild who can beat it in a one-on-one fight. Perhaps only those at Naz and Gray's level can fight it. It's already not bad that you were able to hold it back for a while. Is that so? Lisanna's expression eased as she looked at Noah. By the way, Big Brother Noah, did you discover anything? Noah didn't confirm or deny her words. Instead, he looked at the celestial wolf tree from afar, a thoughtful glint in his dark eyes. If I'm not wrong, there should be something on Celestial Wolf Island that's interfering with the island's own mana. So the reason Celestial Wolf Island was discovered by the outside world is because the island's mana is in disorder? Lisanna tilted her head in confusion. Then what should we do? Isn't it obvious? Noah chuckled. Find the source of the interference. It was unknown if it was angered by Noah's words, but in the next moment, a dark cloud floated over Heavenly Wolf Island, dyeing the entire sky pitch black. Asterisk rumble. Asterisk a clap of thunder rang out. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk torrential rain poured down in an instant, drenching the entire island. Noah, who was standing on the outskirts of Celestial Wolf Island, could only stiffen his face and let the rain soak his body. Pfft. Lisanna couldn't help but laugh when she saw Noah's stiff expression after making such a bold declaration. She held Noah's hand. Before that, let's find a place to hide from the rain. Noah could only nod helplessly. Chapter 70. Rumble. The pitch-black rain clouds shrouded the sky above Heavenly Wolf Island, and deafening thunderclaps resounded one after another. Whoosh! The downpour didn't seem like it was going to stop anytime soon. Instead, it was getting heavier and heavier. In the forest, Noah and Lisanna didn't use any superhuman speed to travel. Instead, they ran forward at a speed that ordinary people could match, so as to avoid wasting unnecessary energy. Not long after, Noah and Lisanna finally entered the canopy of the Celestial Wolf Tree. Thanks to the tree's canopy, the downpour had lessened quite a bit. It was almost like a light drizzle now. Because of that, Noah and Lisanna didn't want to find a cave to hide in. Instead, they went under a tree to avoid the rain. With the help of the Sirius tree and this relatively large tree, the downpour was completely blocked out. Ha! Lisanna took a deep breath and shook off the water on her arms as she complained. Thankfully, I wore a swimsuit when I came. I didn't have time to change after I got on the island, or I'd be all wet. Noah shrugged his shoulders and took out a towel from the duffel bag hanging on top of the knightly sword bag. He helped Lisanna dry her hair. Even so, your body is still wet. If you don't dry yourself, you'll catch a cold. Hee hee. Lisanna chuckled sheepishly, but she didn't reject Noah's action of helping her dry her hair. There seemed to be a happy expression on her reddish face, and it was clear that she enjoyed Noah's service. When the time comes, can't I get Big Brother Noah to take care of me? I don't have that much time to take care of someone who's going to catch a cold. Noah knocked her on the head, ignoring her cries of pain. He didn't help her dry her hair and just sat on the ground. If you catch a cold, you'll only cause trouble for Mila and Elfman. Lisanna puffed up her cheeks and stuck her tongue out at Noah, making a funny face. However, she still came to Noah's side. Noah was sitting on the ground, leaning against the tree trunk. Lisanna leaned against Noah's body as if she was snuggling up to him. Why are they so close? Noah felt the smoothness of Lisanna's skin that was pressed against his body in a swimsuit that did not cover much at all. As usual, he was embarrassed. Then, wouldn't that be very inconvenient? Of course not. It was as if Lisanna didn't notice Noah's unnaturalness. Not only did she stick closer to him, but she also skillfully hugged Noah's arm and rested her head on his shoulder. At first glance, they looked like a pair of lovers. It's very warm like this. Is that so? Noah could only scratch his cheeks, unable to say anything useful. It couldn't be helped. In the past 7 years, Noah had spent most of his time training himself. He didn't have any experience with love at all. Although it wasn't that he didn't understand it at all, since Noah had read quite a lot of books and knew quite a lot of things. However, many things couldn't be understood just by knowing them. They had to be put into practice for them to be useful. Hence, even though there was a high chance that she meant something like that to him, Noah, who had never experienced something like that before, couldn't be 100% sure. Therefore, every time he felt that Lisanna had such feelings for him, Noah couldn't help but have such thoughts. What if it was a misunderstanding? Moreover, even if it wasn't a misunderstanding, Noah didn't know what to do. There was nothing he could do about it. His playmates of the same age as Noah had lived for at least 10 years. Among them, except for Kana, the others didn't have any experience or immunity in this aspect. Everyone else was already like that. Growing up with such a person who had the appearance and intelligence of a 10-year-old, Noah, who had only lived for 7 years, could vaguely sense Lisanna's feelings. It was already quite impressive. It could only be said that Noah could only blame himself for being too young. While Lisanna was also young, she had been mischievous since she was a child. She was very precocious. The attacks launched by such a person caused Noah to be constantly distressed and helpless. Of course, Noah didn't know that now. In the future, he would be grateful for this experience of interacting with Lisanna. It would allow him to not perform too badly in all sorts of situations in the future. Not knowing how complicated Noah's feelings were, Lisanna closed her eyes as if she had already fallen asleep. She leaned on Noah's shoulder with a smile on her face and a look of bliss on her face. After a while, she suddenly spoke. After a while, she suddenly said, "Actually, I've always been very grateful to Big Brother Noah. You're grateful to me?" Noah was stunned. Ever since we were young, Big Sister Mira, Big Brother Elf, and I only had each other by our side. Lisanna closed her eyes tightly as if she was immersed in her memories. We lived in a very, very ordinary small village. We should have had a father and a mother in the past, but in our memories, we only had each other. Noah didn't say anything and only listened quietly. Sometimes, I would think about how it would feel to have a father and mother who doted on me. I don't know what Big Sister Mira and Big Brother Elf were thinking, but I didn't feel lonely at all. Lisanna's tone became gloomy. Everything changed when Big Sister Mira came into contact with the demons of the church in the village and awakened the receiving magic. From then on, not only did Big Sister Mira not smile, but she also rarely spoke. I know that Big Sister Mira has always blamed herself. She felt that she had implicated us and caused us to be chased out of the village. Big Brother Elf also became a little timid because of this, Lisanna said with a bitter smile. Seeing Big Sister Mira in so much pain and Big Brother Elf always being afraid of being ostracized by others, I really didn't know what to do. That's all in the past, Noah said when he heard the pain in Lisanna's voice. Now, you won't have that experience anymore. Yes. Lisanna's sadness dissipated, and she looked up at Noah with bright eyes. And the person who changed everything and saved us was Big Brother Noah. That's not it. Noah shook his head. I just happened to know a little more than you and invited you to join Fairy's Tale at the right time. Even if I didn't appear, you would have known the truth about the power in Myra's body sooner or later. But in the end, the person we met was none other than you, Big Brother Noah. Lisanna reached out and held Noah's face, turning his face to meet hers. It was Big Brother Noah who saved Big Sister Mira. It was Big Brother Noah who stopped Big Brother Elf from becoming a coward. It was also Big Brother Noah who brought us into the guild and gave us companions and a new life. To us, Big Brother Noah is such an existence. Big Brother Noah. Lisanna's voice became a little emotional. Actually, from that time onwards, ding. Just as Lisanna was about to pour out her feelings to Noah, a strange sound interrupted her. Both Noah and the excited Lisanna were stunned and turned to the side. Then, Noah and Lisanna widened their eyes. Not far away from the two of them, a figure was standing in the rain. She was a very cute little girl about 12 or 13 years old. The girl had a pair of dark green eyes and a pair of small wings on her head. Her long golden hair was very curly and thick, and she wore a thick cloak-like dress. Looking at the extremely cute and beautiful girl, Noah and Lisanna were dazed. Chapter 71. If one had to find a word to describe Noah and Lisanna's current feelings, then only one word would suffice. Inconceivable. There was no other reason. It was because the girl standing in front of them in the rain was simply too beautiful. Her thick clothes and hair were completely devoid of water, and her entire body was emitting a faint, dreamy glow. The girl revealed a smile under the gazes of Noah and Lisanna. She tilted her head and stood there barefooted, not even wearing shoes. However, Noah and Lisanna didn't feel that there was anything wrong with this at all. Rather, if the barefooted elf in front of them were to wear shoes, it would destroy that almost perfect dreamy feeling and beauty, causing a flaw to appear on her body. Gazing at the scene of the barefoot elf smiling at her in the rain, she was no longer as agitated as before. Instead, she gently tugged at Noah's hand and murmured absent-mindedly. Big Brother Noah, could that be the rumored fairy that exists on Celestial Wolf Island? Fairies exist on Celestial Wolf Island. It was precisely because of such a rumor that Celestial Wolf Island was nicknamed Fairy Island, and also became the holy land of Fairy Tale. In the end, whether or not fairies exist on Celestial Wolf Island was something that no one knew for sure. However, if fairies do exist on this island, then Noah and Lisanna would definitely be willing to believe it. In front of him, this young girl was filled with a dreamy feeling. She was the legendary Demoness. Perhaps it was because she had heard Lisanna's uncontrollable words, but the barefooted fairy let out a bell-like laugh. Immediately after, she turned around and ran off into the distance. Ah! Lisanna subconsciously cried out in alarm. Wait! Noah finally reacted and hurriedly grabbed the cloth bag and luggage beside him. Then, he pulled on the hand of the dazed Lisanna and chased after her. Walala! Fine droplets of rain continued to fall from the sky, sprinkling onto the ground of Celestial Wolf Island. Noah and Lisanna, however, didn't care about that at all. They chased after the fairy girl who was running at a slow pace, making it impossible for anyone to get close to her. Just like that, one ran in front while the other two chased from behind. Unknowingly, after an unknown amount of time, the environment in front of them began to brighten. Even the rain stopped falling at some point. Noah and Lisanna immediately stopped in their tracks and looked around. This was a vast place with walls all around. The walls were covered with tree roots, and there were unknown light sources floating around like fireflies. It was very much like walking into a strange place in a dream. Lisanna's attention completely focused on her surroundings. Noah, on the other hand, stared at a spot not far ahead. His eyes began to fluctuate. That was because there was a huge tree in the place where Noah was staring at. Of course, what was important wasn't the tree, but the thing within it. At the bottom of the huge tree, there was a hole in the tree that was covered with dried grass. There was an old tomb that looked like it had been there for a long time. There was a tombstone on the tomb. It was a tombstone that seemed to have been pieced together by two tombstones. There was a gap in the middle, and in the middle of the gap was a hole. It was on such a tombstone that a ball of flame was burning in the hole, filling it up. Looking at this scene, Noah's heartbeat began to accelerate involuntarily. The scene before him was exactly the same as the one Noah had seen in the fairy's tale yesterday. In other words, the illusion Noah had seen yesterday was very likely not a pure illusion, but a real one. That also meant that there was something that Noah was very concerned about in the burning flame-like object. Those were the feathers that he had seen in the white dream. If yesterday's illusion was really real, thinking of this, Noah couldn't help but walk forward. Big brother Noah. Lisanna stared blankly at Noah, who was walking towards the tombstone, as if she was hesitating whether she should call out to him or not. During this period of time, Noah arrived in front of the tombstone and stared at the hole in the tombstone that was burning like a flame. After a while, he tensed up and stretched out his arm abruptly. Wang! When Noah's hand came into contact with the burning flame-like object, a dazzling light burst out from it, illuminating every corner of the scene. Big brother Noah. Lisanna turned pale with fright, but she only had time to call out before her body was swallowed by the light. Goo! Noah was also enveloped by the light. Furthermore, the ball of flame that Noah's hand came into contact with seemed to crawl up his hand, bringing with it a dense light that illuminated the surroundings. Noah could feel a strong sense of repulsion coming from the hand that was touching it. An extraordinary force kept pounding against his hand, as if warning him to quickly let go. However, not only did Noah have no intention of retreating, he instead slowly withstood the repulsion and slowly clenched his hand. Wang! At the same time, on the back of Noah's hand that came into contact with the ball of flame, the guild emblem belonging to Fairy Tale blossomed with light. In an instant, as if a heavy door had been opened by a key, the repulsion on Noah's hand disappeared. Then, under the stimulation of the intense light, Noah closed his eyes. His consciousness was cut off from here. In a daze, Noah felt as if someone was calling out to him. Thus, Noah slowly opened his eyes. The first thing that entered Noah's eyes was a blank expanse of whiteness. For a moment, Noah thought that he was having the white dream of the past, but after a while, he denied himself. Because, the white in front of him was completely different from the white in Noah's dream. The white in Noah's dream did not make people feel empty, instead, it was like returning to the state of an embryo, very comfortable. Although the whiteness in front of him didn't give him a feeling of emptiness, it still made him feel at a loss. It was completely different from the comfortable feeling Noah experienced in his dream. When he realized it, Noah realized. In front of him, the barefoot fairy girl was tilting her head and smiling at him. Good morning. Good morning. A tender and sweet voice entered Noah's ears, making Noah slightly stunned. He responded reflexively, but when he reacted, he was shocked. You, me? The barefoot fairy girl smiled to the point that her eyes were closed, and introduced herself in this way. My name is Mavis. Mavis Viamilio. Mavis Viamilio. Noah frowned and muttered doubtfully. Why does this name sound so familiar? After saying this, Noah's eyes lit up. Mavis Viamilio. Noah would naturally find this name familiar. That was the name of the first chairman of Fairy Tale U. Noah was stunned as he looked at the barefooted young fairy girl who was smiling at him. You are the first chairman. It has been so long, but there is still someone who remembers me. How delightful. Mavis' voice became lively, and her beautiful bare feet lightly touched the ground, as if she was touching water, creating ripples. She arrived in front of Noah, raised her head, and curiously sized up Noah's body. Inconceivable youth, what is your name? Inconceivable youth? No. In Noah's opinion, Mavis was the truly inconceivable existence. Why would the already dead first chairman appear in front of him? Chapter 72. Mavis was standing less than a meter away from him. She was sizing him up with great interest. Traces of light could be seen flickering in her dark green eyes. She had a very gentle smile on her face. Noah muttered to himself for a moment. My name is Noah. Noah Dole. Noah first reported his name. But unexpectedly, the light of interest in Mavis' eyes grew more and more intense. Dole? Could it be that you are Yuri's descendant? Hearing this question, Noah, who originally had some doubts about Mavis's identity, started to have some doubts about it. Yuri Dole. This name was not unfamiliar to Noah. The owner of this name was Noah's grandfather, the current president of Fairy Tale, Makarov's father. In other words, Yuri Dole could be considered as Noah's great-grandfather. Thus, Noah did not specifically deny it. He nodded and gave a simple reply. Yuri's great-grandfather's son is my grandfather who adopted me. I am the adopted grandson of Fairy Tale's current president, Makarov. So it's like that. The smile on Mavis' face became somewhat dazzling. She appeared to be very happy. To think that there's such an inconceivable existence like you in Fairy Tale. Looks like Fairy Tale has become very interesting now. Hey. Noah could not help but ask. Are you really the first president? Really? Mavis forcefully nodded her head, as if to increase her persuasiveness, she uttered those words. Although I am only a specter right now. Specter. Noah could only turn silent. He did not know what to say. Doubt her? But Noah was unable to say for sure that specters did not exist. Believe her? But her affinity with Noah was so high. She was not at all like the first president who left behind many legends. Furthermore, Noah still had many questions in his heart. Mixed together with the question of whether Mavis was truly the first-generation chairman, Noah didn't know which question to resolve first, causing him to sink into distress. Of course, Noah did have many questions in his heart, but Mavis did not. Thus, after looking at Noah for a while, Mavis tilted her head and smiled as she spoke. I know, you are actually looking for this thing, right? After saying that, Mavis extended her hand. In the next moment, a transparent crystal ball suddenly appeared in the empty sky and slowly fell into Mavis' hand. Dong! Almost at the same time when the transparent crystal ball appeared on the scene, Noah's heart suddenly thumped to a degree that could be clearly heard even if it wasn't pressed against his chest. The transparent crystal ball in Mavis' hand blossomed with a dazzling radiance. Within this dazzling radiance, regardless of whether it was Noah or Mavis, both of them could feel an emotion as if it was alive. Joy. Suspended within the transparent crystal ball was some kind of existence. Just like a human, it was emitting an emotion called joy. It was as if it had finally found its family after being lost for many years. The existence that was floating inside the transparent crystal ball-like crystal was the thing that Noah was most concerned about on this trip. A broken feather. Sure enough, this child is related to you. She could clearly feel the joy emitted from the broken feathers floating inside the transparent crystal ball, as well as the loud heartbeat coming from Noah's body. An indescribable radiance appeared on Mavis' adorable childlike face. It's no wonder that after you entered Heavenly Wolf Island, this child, who was always like an inanimate object, would suddenly become so fretful as if it was alive. Finding you was truly the right choice. Hearing this, Noah bitterly laughed. Clutching his heart, he resisted the feeling that was continuously surging within his body. That was also joy. Of course, Noah's heart was also surging with complex emotions at the same time. The appearance of the feather proved that the white dream that Noah had been living in since he was a child was very likely to be real. Furthermore, it was very likely that it was closely related to Noah's past, or the secret of his existence and birth. If that was the case, then the feather in front of him was the key to unraveling Noah's mysterious past. Thinking of this, how could Noah's feelings not be complicated? After all, whether it was his body's constitution or the feather that was emitting joy from meeting him, both were telling Noah that he was not ordinary. He really wasn't an ordinary person. Buzz buzz. The joy emitted by the feather in Mavis's hand began to change into fretful. Era. Mavis helplessly laughed. It seems that this child really wants to return to your side. Noah also had the same feeling, so he didn't refute Mavis's words. Instead, he forcefully suppressed the various doubts and emotions in his heart and extended his hand. First generation, can you give this to me? I originally called you here because I wanted to give this child to you. Mavis very straightforwardly handed over the item in her hand to Noah. Her appearance was just like a child presenting a treasure to an adult, asking for praise. It was exceptionally adorable. Ever since this child suddenly appeared in my tomb, the magic of Heavenly Wolf Island would occasionally be affected. Perhaps because of this, Heavenly Wolf Island has already been exposed to the outside world. This is truly distressing. So it turned out that the magic of Heavenly Wolf Island was disrupted due to the appearance of the feather and was exposed to the outside world. With this, one of his doubts was finally resolved. Noah solemnly took the feather from Mavis's hand. Buzz. Once it landed in Noah's hand, the fretful emitted by the feather immediately turned into joy. Immediately after, like a baby returning to its cradle, it fell into a deep sleep. Thus, the resplendent strong light dissipated. At the scene, only Noah and Mavis were left. Hey, can you tell me? Mavis's pair of small wings that were slightly above her ears slightly shook twice. Then, Mavis approached with a face full of curiosity. What relationship do you have with this child? What relationship do I have with it? Noah looked at the feather that was quietly lying in his hand, his tone becoming complicated. Actually, I really want to know, is that so? Mavis seemed to have seen through the confusion in Noah's heart and smiled. No matter what, with such an unfathomable existence like you in the fairy tale, perhaps it will become even more interesting. Moreover, you are the grandson of the third generation and have a heart that is tightly linked to the fairy tale. I believe that one day, you will be able to find your own answer. Speaking to this point, Mavis suddenly seemed to be thinking about something very important. She crossed her arms like a mischievous child and appeared to be distressed. But after a while, she immediately tapped her palm. I've decided. After saying this, Mavis closed her eyes and 3 balls of light suddenly floated out from within her body and revolved around each other. In the next second, the 3 balls of light shot towards Noah's direction. Noah reflexively raised his hands and blocked in front of his body. However, the 3 balls of light ignored Noah's movements and directly merged into Noah's body. Noah only felt an explosion in his head. A memory that didn't belong to Noah entered his mind and was deeply engraved in the depths of Noah's soul. In a daze, Noah heard Mavis's dreamy voice that seemed to be getting further and further away. This is a gift for you. I hope that the inconceivable you can also bring inconceivable hope to the fairy tale. Chapter 73. Big Brother Noah. Big Brother Noah. Big Brother Noah. Just like in his dreams, Noah's familiar voice sounded with a hint of worry, waking him up. Big Brother Noah. As Noah slowly opened his eyes, the worry in her voice disappeared and was replaced with surprise. Noah saw her face full of surprise, causing Noah to wake up. Lisanna? Yes. Lisanna nodded heavily and let out a sigh of relief. That's great. Big brother Noah, you're finally awake. I thought something happened to you. Seeing her expression of relief that couldn't be faked, Noah rubbed her head in shame. Sorry for making you worry. It's good that you're fine, she said with a shake of her head. Big brother Noah, why did you suddenly seem to have lost consciousness? About that. Noah scratched his face and laughed bitterly. I don't know how to explain it all of a sudden. I'm not too sure myself, but if I'm not wrong, the firstborn pulled me into a place similar to a mental world. That's why I'm like that, right? Firstborn? She tilted her head in confusion. Upon seeing this, Noah didn't explain in detail. Instead, he continued to stroke her head while looking ahead. Over there, the tombstone of the first president of Fairy Tale was still as old as ever. The hole in the middle of the tombstone was still the same as before, as if it was filled with burning flames. Although there was no heat, there was still a warm glow coming from it. At first, Noah didn't know what the burning flame-like thing was, but now he knew. Anyone who knew about Mavis Viamilio and Fairy Tale would know that there were 3 world-famous magics in Fairy Tale. They were created by the first president of the Fairy Tale, Mavis Viamilio, and only the members of the Fairy Tale could use these 3 super spells. The so-called super magic referred to super magic that only had exceptionally strong magic power, and even had to meet certain conditions. It was a super magic that was much more powerful than ordinary magic, or even the lost magic that existed since the ancient times. It was a super magic with earth-shattering power. Magics like that were not only powerful, they were extremely rare. Even the 10 great Magi saints who represented the pinnacle of the magic world might not have them. It could be said that they were existences that every magus would covet. Within Fairy Tale, there were 3 such magics. However, ever since the firstborn president of Fairy Tale, Mavis Viamilio, passed away, only one of the 3 magics of Fairy Tale was passed down. It was in the hands of the past presidents of Fairy Tale. The other 2 magics were completely lost and became lost magics. Inside the burning flame on the tombstone that belonged to the first chairman of Fairy Tale, one of the 3 great spells of Fairy Tale was sealed within. If the Magi of the outside world were to know about this, it might lead to a war between the Magi on Celestial Wolf Island. After all, if one could really master a magic, even if they couldn't become a figure like the 10 great Magi saints, they could still occupy a place in the magic world. Even Noah couldn't help but be interested. Of course, that was in the past. Noah closed his eyes. At this moment, in Noah's mind, memories that didn't originally belong to him began to appear. There were 3 spells recorded in this memory. These were the 3 major spells of the fairy's tale. Now, these 3 magics, which even the president of Fairy Tale had only mastered one, were clearly engraved in Noah's mind. As long as Noah was willing, he could start learning these 3 world-famous magics at any time. Thus, one of the 3 magics of Fairy Tale sealed within the tombstone was no longer able to arouse Noah's interest. Phew! Noah lightly exhaled, opened his eyes, and spoke softly to the tombstone in front of him. What a precious gift, HM. Lisanna blinked. Big brother Noah, what did you just say? Nothing. Noah tidied up his emotions, turned around, and walked outside. Let's go. Lisanna. Go. Lisanna hurriedly followed. Go where? Noah said without turning his head. Back to the guild. Huh? Lisanna was even more baffled. Then, are we not going to deal with the mana disorder problem on Celestial Wolf Island? That's already been dealt with. Dealt with? Lisanna angrily shouted as countless question marks popped up in her head. What the hell is going on? Explain it to me. In the midst of the commotion, Noah and Lisanna gradually left the place. In front of the old tombstone, the fairy-like girl had appeared there at some point. She looked at Noah's gradually blurring figure from afar, and after a long time, she let out a tinkling laugh. Bless you, the young man who makes others feel incredible and unusually warm, what? In the fairy tale guild, Makarov's frantic screams reverberated throughout the sky of Magnolia. Even the buildings in fairy tale seemed to be trembling. You said you saw President Mavis on Celestial Wolf Island? Standing in front of Makarov, Noah closed one of his eyes after being yelled at by him. Lisanna couldn't help but cover her ears. Apart from Noah and Lisanna, the other members of Fairy Tale widened their eyes in shock. Is this for real? Gray's mouth twitched. The first president's ghost is on Celestial Wolf Island? You're joking, right? Elusha said as she crossed her arms and muttered to herself. No, it's possible if it's Lisanna, but Noah wouldn't make such a joke. Ghost? Naz also crossed his arms with a distressed expression. After a long while, he looked at Habi who was flying beside him. Hey, are ghosts tasty? Wow. Habi narrowed his eyes. This person is dumber than a cat, you. Two. Mira said with a look of hatred. Since you didn't bring me along. Are you two telling the truth? Makarov asked solemnly. You can't joke about this. Actually, I don't know if I should believe it myself. This is what Big Bro Noah told me. Lisanna pointed at her face with her finger and acted as if she was recalling something. But, if it's true that we saw a girl on Celestial Wolf Island, then I saw her too. But, I don't know if it's the first president. This. Makarov was confused for a moment before he looked at Noah. Then, what did President Mavis say to you? Noah glanced at everyone around him. When he realized that everyone was staring at him, he lowered his head. The look in his eyes became indiscernible and undetectable. Should he tell everyone in the guild the truth? While this thought flashed through his mind, Noah's mind was also running at an extremely fast speed. Until a certain moment, Noah made a decision. Actually. Noah looked at Makarov and said. The first president asked me to stay on Celestial Wolf Island temporarily and learn magic from her. Chapter 74. It was nighttime. Lying on his bed, Noah stared at the ceiling not too far away from him. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. Reaching out his hand, he touched his chest. Noah could feel that his heart was beating at an intense frequency. This was a feeling that only Noah knew. Why would his heart beat in such a way? Noah had no idea. However, Noah had a feeling in his heart that something was calling out to him. Noah's intuition told him. If he answered this call, then he would leave the fairy's tale. This feeling started when Noah obtained the feather from Mavis. Since it was related to obtaining the feather, then, even if this feeling was extremely mysterious, the possibility of it becoming reality was extremely high. Sigh. Noah sighed faintly. Actually, in the beginning, Noah didn't want to respond to this call at all. Noah didn't want to leave the fairy tale at all. This was Noah's home. Everything about Noah started from the fairy tale guild. Based on the current situation, the feather was extremely likely to be related to Noah's origin, existence, and birth. After obtaining the feather, he felt as if he had to return to a certain place. If Noah really responded to it, then unraveling the secret of Noah's origin, existence, and birth shouldn't be impossible. However, if he had to leave the fairy tale as the price, then Noah would rather give up. This was Noah's original thought. As for the reason why Noah changed his mind, it was because he suddenly remembered Mavis's words. There is a heart that is tightly linked to the fairy tale. Noah clutched his chest, feeling the unnatural movement there. He closed his eyes and fell into deep thought. Then, no matter how far away I am, will I always return here? This was a completely baseless feeling. However, wasn't the feeling that made Noah leave the fairy tale also completely baseless? Since these were both baseless feelings, if he could believe the former, why couldn't he believe the latter? With that thought in mind, Noah's heart surprisingly calmed down. Even the throbbing in his chest began to subside. Noah had already decided. No matter what, he had to try first. Otherwise, this might become something that Noah would never be able to let go of for the rest of his life. In order to not let Makarov and the people around him worry, Noah said those words during the day. To go to the Sky Wolf Island and learn magic from the first President Mavis. In this way, everyone would not have to worry needlessly. In fact, it was just as Noah had thought. Makarov knew that the first president of the fairy tale would personally teach Noah magic. He was so excited that he howled continuously. However, he did not object and allowed Noah to make his own decision. Elisha, Gray, Naz and the others knew that Noah, who had just returned, was going to leave for a period of time because of his training. They made a lot of noise, but in the end, they did not stop Noah and expressed their support. Only Lisanna, after Noah mentioned that he would be going to the Sky Wolf Island for a period of time, kept her head down and did not say a word. There was no need to talk about Mira. She glared at Noah with a murderous look, as if she had a deep grudge against him. In the end, although they made a lot of noise, Noah's decision to leave tomorrow and stay at the Sky Wolf Island was something that the entire fairy tale guild knew about. And Noah had already made up his mind. Tomorrow, he would try to respond to that strange feeling. But, what happened to Lisanna? Noah could not help but mutter this sentence. In the next moment, he heard the sound of his room door being opened. At that moment, Noah hurriedly got up. There were many people who would come to Noah's room. But there was only one person who would not knock and just directly enter. Lisanna. Brother Noah. Lisanna walked in with a gentle smile on her face. You're not asleep yet? Not yet. Noah sat on the edge of the bed and looked straight at Lisanna. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with her, he heaved a sigh of relief and smiled in response. What about you? Why are you here so late? I wanted to chat with you. Lisanna walked directly to Noah's side and sat down. However, her eyes were fixed on Noah and fixed on Noah. Seeing Lisanna like this, Noah sighed inwardly. Sure enough, there was something wrong with the situation. I'm sorry. Noah raised his head and shifted his gaze to the ceiling as before. He did not look at Lisanna and spoke as if he was minding his own business. I know my decision is very willful, but, before Noah could finish, his mouth was covered by a finger. Brother Noah is not willful. Ever since we were young, you've been the most rational person around us. Lisanna looked into Noah's eyes. Brother Noah must have his own reasons for making such a decision. I know. You know. For the first time, Noah didn't avoid Lisanna's aggressive gaze and bravely looked back at her. But you're still unwilling to do so, aren't you? This time, Lisanna was the first to look away. Her voice was a little dispirited. I'm just a little reluctant. Brother Noah has already left for 4 years, and now you're leaving again. Undoubtedly, we've always been together since we were young, Lisanna. Noah couldn't help but hold Lisanna's hand, which surprised her. Back on Celestial Wolf Island, President Mavis told me that I have a heart that's tightly linked to fairy tale. Noah channeled all his emotions into his words, attempting to express them through words. Fairy's tale will always be my home, my home. No matter how far I go, I will always come back. Then, how long will you be gone this time? Lisanna finally could not help but ask the question she was most concerned about. Another 4 years. Noah could hear the reluctance in her voice. For a moment, Noah even considered giving up on his decision and staying in fairy tale. After all, to be honest, Noah himself did not know when he would return. However, if he really did that, Noah's perception of himself would remain at the level of a different monster from others for the rest of his life. Was that really okay? At the same time as he asked himself, Noah closed his eyes. After a while, he suddenly opened them. 3 years. Lysana was stunned. 3 years? Yes. Noah nodded heavily, his tone incomparably firm. No matter what, I'll definitely return in 3 years at most. This sentence was still without any basis. However, at this moment, Noah had already decided that no matter what, he would definitely return to Fairy Tale within 3 years at most. Even if the situation did not allow it, Noah would still think of a way to return. Even if he died, he would return. This was Noah's determination. Perhaps she saw something from Noah's attitude. Lysana finally smiled sweetly, held Noah's hand, closed her eyes, and leaned her head on Noah's shoulder. Noah's heart was also deeply touched. Leaning on Lysana's head, he also closed his eyes and did not speak, allowing time to pass. Noah and Lysana, who were immersed in tenderness, did not notice. Outside the door, a figure left a trail of white ponytail in the air and quietly left. Chapter 75. The sun gradually chased away the darkness of the night and illuminated the entirety of Villa Magnolia. It also illuminated the fairy tale that seemed to always be in the center of the town, causing the signboard to shine brightly. At this moment, she was arranging the clothes she had taken out from the wardrobe and stuffing everything she had brought into Noah's luggage. What's missing? Noah, who had put his magic sword into a cloth bag, looked at Lysana with a helpless expression. I say, Lysana, I'm only going on a long trip, not to seek refuge. There's no need to pack all my clothes and stuff into my luggage, right? What are you talking about? Lysana spat out her dissatisfied words without even turning her head. Big brother Noah, you're going to Celestial Wolf Island this time, not near Magnolia. You can find food on the island, but will you be able to find clothes on the island? Still, there's no need to bring so much, right? Noah looked at the luggage that was almost bigger than his bed and rolled his eyes. Can't I just bring 1 or 2 pieces of clothing and 1 or 2 other things? Then what if you can't find them when you need them? There's always a way. I'm going to an island, not a desert. Do you think I'll die of thirst or starvation? But, seeing that she was still unwilling, Noah decided to cut the Gordian knot. No matter what, it'll be a burden for me to bring too many things. I'm not a Lusha, I don't have to bring a carriage full of luggage with me every time I go on a mission. Then, under Lysana's regretful gaze, Noah took out the things he didn't need and the things he prepared too well. He only stopped when his luggage was reduced to the size of a parcel. He hung it on the cloth bag that contained the knight's sword and slung it over his shoulder. That'll do. All right. Lysana still didn't seem to feel at ease. Noah couldn't help but stroke her soft hair lovingly. Even though I'm going far this time, I have experience living in the wilderness, mountains, and forests. I won't starve to death anywhere. Only then did her expression look much better and she nodded reluctantly. Noah walked down the stairs with her. When he appeared in front of everyone in the guild, the noisy guild instantly quieted down. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Noah. Some were filled with blessings. Some were filled with smiles. Some were filled with reluctance. Some were filled with understanding. Noah's heart couldn't help but calm down. Elisha, Naz, Gray, Kana, Elfman, and even Leia, who was in the corner, quietly looked at Noah, not intending to say anything. There was a complicated look in Myra's eyes for a moment. After a while, she snorted coldly and turned her head away with a look of indifference. Makarov walked up to Noah and looked up at Noah. Are you ready? Noah didn't answer. Instead, he nodded, causing Makarov to sigh. You're a smart child. You've been very sensible since you were young. You know how to work hard and take care of yourself. You also have experience cultivating outside. I'm not worried about whether you'll be able to live a better life. Speaking of this, Makarov smiled benevolently. But if you miss home, you can come back at any time. Understand? Noah suppressed the surging emotions in his heart, but he couldn't help but put on a smile on his face. I understand, Grandpa. Celestial Wolf Island is our sacred land. Since you plan to live there, you have the duty to protect it, Makarov said seriously. The strength of the first chairman, Mavis Viamilio, when she was alive was almost unseen. She also possessed extraordinary wisdom and knowledge. She was familiar with almost all kinds of magic. Since the first chairman intends to personally teach you magic, you have to learn it seriously. Makarov said with some expectation. With your talent and the powerful magic that you were born with, perhaps you might have the opportunity to learn the 3 great spells that President Mavis created when she was still alive. Fairy tale. That's hard to say. Hearing this, the members of the guild were also looking forward to it. They obviously wanted to see the 3 great magic spells of the fairy tale. Noah couldn't help but apologize to everyone in his heart. After all, Noah didn't really intend to let Mavis teach him magic. However, Makarov and the others' expectations weren't disappointed. Although Noah said that Mavis would personally teach him magic, it was just a white lie that he didn't want others to worry about him. However, this lie wasn't completely made up. At the very least, the 3 great magic spells of the fairy tale that Mavis created were indeed lying in Noah's mind, waiting for him to learn and control them. Thus, Noah looked around at everyone present and nodded solemnly. I won't disappoint everyone. Hearing this, everyone in the guild gave Noah their blessings. Take good care of yourself, Noah. Don't forget to bring back some specialties when you come back. Yes, yes, yes. If there's anything good on Celestial Wolf Island, don't forget to bring it back for us to enjoy. The kind words of farewell made Noah feel rather emotional, but he still responded to them one by one. However, not everyone's farewell was so heartwarming. Noah. Naz jumped out from the crowd and raised a fist. Let's have a showdown. Naz. Habi sighed helplessly. Naz. Lisanna said angrily. Why are you still like this at a time like this? Idiot. Gray said teasingly. Only a guy like you, whose head is filled with fire, would keep making things difficult for himself. Gray's voice became softer and softer as he spoke. There was no other reason. At this moment, Naz was no longer as hot-blooded and impulsive as before, shouting, "Let's have a showdown!" and rushing over immediately. At this moment, there was only a serious expression on Naz's face that didn't match him at all. Noah also looked straight at Naz, whose face was full of seriousness, and spoke after a while. Naz, are you serious? Ever since I came to Fairy's Tale, and lost to you, I've always wanted to challenge you again. For this, I've worked very hard for the past 4 years. Naz grinned. You're going to leave again now. When you come back, you'll definitely become stronger, but I can't wait. Noah. The raised fist was burning with flames that made the air in the entire guild hot, and Naz's expression became as ferocious as a beast's. You can leave, but you have to have a showdown with me first. The whole place was silent. Feeling the scorching temperature rising from Nazi's body and the ferocious magic power that was like real flames, Noah closed his eyes and then suddenly opened them. I understand, I accept your challenge. Naz smiled, and his smile was unusually hot-blooded. I'm burning. Fairy's Tale, in front of the guild's main entrance. Thinking about it carefully, the last time the 2 of us fought under such circumstances was 4 years ago. Noah took off the luggage hanging on the cloth bag containing the magic knight's sword and threw it aside. He looked at Naz opposite him, and the corners of his mouth slowly rose. 4 years ago, I fought with you and killed us here. In the blink of an eye, 4 years have passed. I'm not the same as 4 years ago. Naz was like a cheetah that was about to pounce forward. He lowered his body and stared at Noah. This time, I'll definitely defeat you. The smile on Noah's face gradually widened, and one of his hands held the bag that contained the magic knight's sword tightly. Then let me see it. Chapter 76. The battle began abruptly in an atmosphere that was on the verge of breaking out. Boom! With an explosive sound, Nazi lowered his body like a cheetah. Scorching flames rose from his body and wrapped around Nazi's body. Nazi opened his mouth without warning, and the flames around his body flowed into his mouth like a stream of air. Fire dragons. In the next moment, Naz opened his mouth in Noah's direction. Roar! A blast of flames shot out of Naz's mouth. It grew bigger and bigger as it charged. With extreme heat, it evaporated the atmosphere and shattered the earth. It blew towards Noah's direction amidst the dust and turbulence. Noah's vision was filled with flames and his cheeks were getting warmer because of the approaching flames. However, he was still as calm as ever with a smile on his face. Without any intention of dodging or using magic, Noah grabbed the cloth bag that held the magic knight's sword and held the hilt of the magic knight's sword in the bag. He held the bag horizontally in front of him until the raging flames blew in front of him. Then, he swung it to the side. Whoosh! As if a gust of wind suddenly appeared in front of Noah, the scorching flames were disrupted by an invisible force when Noah swung the cloth bag that held the magic knight's sword. They scattered into sparks that filled the sky. Seeing this scene, everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. He didn't use magic, didn't unsheath the sword, and didn't even open the cloth bag that held the magic knight's sword. With just a wave of his hand, Naz's powerful flame breath was disintegrated. As expected. Elisha and Mira stared at Noah, who was full of smiles. He's already stronger than us, big brother Noah. Lisanna seemed to be a little excited, as if she was the one who was standing in the middle of the battlefield. What's wrong? Noah put down the cloth bag in his hand and looked straight at Naz, who was opposite him. If that's all you got, you can't beat me, Naz. I'm just greeting you first. Not only was Naz not discouraged, he even smiled excitedly. Now, it's time for the main show. After saying that, a majestic mana surged out from Naz's body, causing the flames around him to burn even more fiercely and hotter than before. And the strength of this mana was far beyond that of an ordinary magic shooter. Even many of the veteran magic shooters in the guild could not compare to him. The sudden appearance of such a powerful demonic energy directly caused the nearby crowd to become quiet. Numerous bewildered gazes were immediately shot over and paused on Naz. Their expressions had also become somewhat interesting. This Naz is already so strong. Looking at Naz, whose cherry-colored hair was fluttering in the dense flames, whether it was the veteran magic shooters in the guild or Naz's childhood playmates, they were all shocked. Although Naz was always clamoring to duel with someone, almost no one had seen Naz's full strength in these years, not even Gray, who played with him every day. Therefore, at this time, no one in the great fairy tale knew that Naz had unknowingly become so strong. Apart from those S-rank magic shooters, there shouldn't be more than 5 people in the entire fairy tale who could compare to Naz. This guy, even we didn't know that he had reached such a level. Mira and Elisha looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. Tisk, Gray smacked his lips, but his line of sight was fixed on Naz. Obviously, this guy, who could definitely be called a sworn enemy with Naz, was competitive because of Naz's strength. How is it? In the center of the field, Naz, who was surrounded by surging flames, smiled proudly. I've become stronger, right? Indeed, you've become stronger. I believe that there are not many people in the guild who can beat you, Naz. Noah looked straight at Naz and suddenly smiled. But, if it's only to this extent, before he finished his words, Noah's figure suddenly trembled. Looking at Noah, who stopped in front of him without moving, Naz's expression suddenly changed. The flames around him suddenly shook, and like a propeller, it made Naz's figure glide backward. The moment Naz retreated, a black shadow suddenly appeared. The long cloth bag carried a terrifying oppressive wind and sharp air-tearing sound as it fiercely slashed at Naz's original position, brushing past Naz's face. At this moment, Noah's figure on the opposite side began to dissipate. He held the cloth bag and appeared at the side of Naz's original position. An afterimage? In the crowd, Mira and Alusha's eyes narrowed at the same time. So fast. Lisanna and the others covered their mouths in astonishment. Fire dragons. Naz, who dodged Noah's attack, stopped retreating, leaped forward, extended his arm, and clenched his fist. The flames on his body instantly gathered on his fist, bringing along a scorching wind as he smashed his fist toward Noah's chest. Iron Fist. The fiery wind pounced and mercilessly hit Noah's face, making Noah's face gradually become hotter and hotter. However, in the face of Naz's violent attack, Noah's expression remained unchanged. He bent his wrist slightly and the long cloth bag in his hands suddenly flew out and blocked in front of Noah like a shield. Bang! In the muffled sound, Naz's violent punch hit the cloth bag, stirring up dense sparks and wind waves. However, it didn't even burn a layer of skin on the cloth bag. The reason was simple. Noah had already covered the entire cloth bag with his mana. Unless Naz had the ability to disperse the mana that Noah covered the cloth bag, Naz, a dignified dragon slayer archmage, couldn't even destroy the cloth bag that Noah used to store the magic knight sword. Naz's brain wasn't very bright, but when it came to battle, his brain would turn and he naturally understood what was going on. At that moment, Naz let out a dragon-like roar. It's not over yet. The moment the roar fell, Naz crazily waved his fists burning with flames. Scorching hot fists like a storm poured towards Noah's body. Red Lotus Fire Dragon Fists. The fiery fist, which was like a jet of fire, shrouded Noah's body in an overwhelming manner. It was mixed with a blazing wind, wrapping every part of Noah's body. There was no trace of mercy at all. Naz's violent and ferocious offensive made Noah raise his eyebrows. A trace of sharpness emerged in his eyes. He slightly lifted his foot and took a step forward, his body nimbly dodging left and right. Chi 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 chi. Naz's storm-like red lotus fire dragon fists actually brushed past Noah's body and landed in the air. They were all dodged by Noah. Occasionally, Noah would wave the cloth bag in his hand to resist some of the flames. The sparks that erupted illuminated Noah's young face. Thus, in the flames that filled the sky, one could clearly see if one observed carefully. Noah's line of sight was tightly fixed on one of the fire beams that covered the sky. Suddenly, Noah's figure stopped and no longer dodged. His eyes shone brightly. The cloth bag in his hand was like a heavy sword, directly thrusting out and hitting one of the fire beams that filled the sky. A muffled sound slowly sounded. The fire beams that filled the sky also abruptly dissipated. Only Naz's stagnant fist and the cloth bag heavily collided, stirring up a strong wind. Chapter 77. Wah! A shockwave spread out from the battlefield and blew onto the surrounding fairy tale players, causing quite a few of them to cry out in surprise. Ha! Feeling the fierce force from Naz's fist, Noah let out a low growl. Vigorous magic power burst out from his body and poured into Noah's arm along his body. With the support of such vigorous magic power, Noah's arm seemed to have become slightly thicker than before. Under such circumstances, Noah suddenly shook his arm and an explosive force surged out from his arm and rushed into the cloth bag. Finally, it rudely went along the cloth bag and hit Naz's fist that collided with the tip of the cloth bag. Bang! A sudden burst of power came crashing down, causing a loud clashing sound to ring out. Then, the scorching flames covering Naz's fist were completely dispersed by this impact, causing Naz to be shocked. Pa! On the other hand, Noah didn't hesitate at all. Taking advantage of Naz's surprise, he heavily slapped the cloth bag. Whoosh! The cloth bag wrapped in vigorous magic power was like an arrow that left the bow and shot toward Naz, who was close at hand. Shooting at such a close distance, even with Naz's reaction, he almost couldn't react in time. When he finally reacted with great difficulty, the tip of the cloth bag containing the magic knight sword, which was the tip of the magic knight sword in the cloth bag, had been imprinted in Naz's eyes and gradually enlarged. Damn it! Naz roared again. He turned his body sideways and turned his body upside down in the air. He stretched out a foot with his head down and feet up. Naz's foot immediately burned with a scorching flame. Fire Dragon's Hook Claw. The foot burning with flames fiercely kicked the cloth bag that was shooting toward him. Clang! A crisp sound of steel clashing resounded through the sky. Naz's figure and the cloth bag that was shooting toward Naz flew out almost at the same time. Paw! Noah directly stretched out his hand and caught the cloth bag that was flying back. Goo! Naz fell to the ground with his back in a somewhat embarrassing state. After smashing heavily on the ground, he bounced up and knelt on one knee with one hand pressing on the ground. He finally stabilized his body. It was clear at a glance who had the upper hand in this duel. Moreover, Naz had already used all his skills and his magic power was almost squandered in a wasteful way. He attacked crazily and displayed 120% of his strength. As for Noah, not to mention magic, even his usual weapon had been kept in the cloth bag. He didn't display his impressive swordsmanship. He only used magic power to strengthen the toughness of the cloth bag throughout the whole process. He was unilaterally dealing with Naz's attacks and hadn't even started to exert his strength. As a result, Naz displayed 120% of his strength, but Noah didn't even know if he used 1/10 of his strength. Naz still ended the duel at a disadvantage. Was there any suspense in this duel? So strong. No matter how stupid Naz was, it was impossible for him not to realize how big the gap between him and Noah was. He clenched his fists, his eyes and expression were shaking, and his body was trembling. Seeing this, the people of Fairy Tale were amazed at Noah's outstanding strength, and at the same time, they looked at Naz with pity. Naz. Habi had tears in the corners of his eyes and looked like he was about to cry. It seemed that he couldn't bear to watch anymore. Mira, Elisha, Lisanna, Gray, and the others quietly watched the development of everything in silence. Makarov, who had been watching the entire duel silently, glanced at the calm Noah and then at the wavering Naz, and a gratified look appeared in his eyes. Naz, you should thank Noah for creating the motivation for you to become stronger before leaving. In the middle of the field, Noah looked at Naz, who was clenching his fists, trembling all over, and his eyes gradually became serious. Naz. The extremely abrupt call startled the trembling Naz and he looked over blankly. Become stronger. Facing Naz's sluggish gaze, Noah indifferently opened his mouth and said such a sentence. Then, come and challenge me. Hearing this, Naz's eyes trembled, but the trembling of his body inconceivably stopped. His expression gradually recovered, and he revealed a big smile. You're really strong. Naz lowered his hands and stared at Noah with a burning gaze. Next time, let's have another duel. Noah closed his eyes, but the smile on his face could not be concealed. It was not until this time that the people of Fairy Tale realized what had happened. It was obvious. Naz had admitted defeat. This duel. Makarov announced on the spot. The winner Noah. Oh 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 oh. All the magic shooters of Fairy Tale cheered, and they were not stingy with their cheers for this wonderful duel. Naz. Habi flew directly into Naz's arms, and his face was full of worry. Are you okay? Ah. Naz nodded heavily, hugged Habi, and looked at Noah, who was in the middle of the crowd, with a strong fighting spirit blooming in his eyes. Hey, Habi. N? Habi raised his head and looked at Naz in a daze. I want to be strong. Naz made such a declaration in a firm and hearty voice. Become stronger than anyone else. Love. Habi cried out loudly. If it's Naz, it's definitely not a problem. Is that so? Naz laughed out loud. Not far away, Noah, who was in the middle of the crowd, looked in the direction of Naz, and his heart was more or less surging. Although Naz was not as strong as Mira and Elisha, and was not comparable to Laxus, but after the battle with Naz, Noah had such an incredible feeling in his heart. If there was someone in the crowd of fairy tale who could surpass Noah in the future and catch up with Noah's footsteps, then this person, in all likelihood, was Naz. From Naz, Noah saw almost infinite possibilities. So, Noah deeply believed in this. Just as the crowd of fairy tale cheered because of the end of the battle between Noah and Naz, on a high point not far from fairy tale, several figures were standing there. Looking down at Noah, who was surrounded by fairy tale people, Laxus's expression did not change at all. However, Freed, Bikesro, and Albarglin, who were standing beside Laxus, could clearly see that Laxus's hand, which was crossed in front of his chest, was tightly grasping his arm, almost scratching his skin. That Noah. Freed looked at Noah with a serious gaze. He didn't use magic, nor did he use any weapons, nor did he take the initiative to attack. He just dealt with it passively, yet he was able to suppress Naz. Speaking of which, Naz's strength has also improved a lot. Bikesro seemed to be in disbelief. Looking at his current strength, even if our Thor Council made a move, it is very likely that we can't beat him in a one-on-one fight. I have no interest in Naz. Albarglin said directly. I want to know what Noah's true strength is more. As soon as these words came out, Laxus immediately turned around and walked in another direction without looking back. Laxus. The three people of Thor Council all let out anxious voices and chased after him. Laxus, who did not care about Thor Council, had a ruthless look in his eyes as he left such a sentence. When you come back, I will prove that I am the strongest one. Chapter 78. At the port of Magnolia, a ship was anchored there. The captain was letting the workers unload the cargo from the ship while glancing to the side from time to time, as if waiting for something. In the captain's line of sight, the magic shooters of fairy tale were gathered here. Their gazes were focused on Noah, and they did not speak for a long time. Noah was the same. His gaze swept over his companions again and again until the captain of the ship not far away cast an urging gaze at him. He took a deep breath and nodded to everyone. Everyone, let's part here. Brother Noah. Lisanna was the first to call out to Noah, her face full of reluctance. Remember to take good care of yourself. Don't worry. Noah stepped forward and patted Lisanna's little head. This is not the first time I've left fairy tale for training. You don't have to worry too much. That's true, Elisha said as if she was joking. With Noah's strength, even if he encounters a shipwreck, he will be able to survive. We don't have to worry about him at all. Well, although I'm not very familiar with Celestial Wolf Island, since the first president is there, even a ghost can take care of Noah, right? Gray was dressed neatly, which was rare for him. He smiled at Noah. Don't let the people who have passed away worry about you. Let's fight again next time. Naz clenched his fists and grinned. Next time, I will definitely not lose again. Love. Harpy called out energetically. Then, he reluctantly took out a fish from his backpack. He was drooling while holding back his tears. With trembling cat paws, he handed the fish to Noah. I'll give you my most precious treasure. Boo-hoo-hoo. I'll accept your kindness. Noah said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Since it's so precious, keep it well. Don't waste it. Love. Like acting in a play, Harpy rapidly took back the fish. His funny performance dispersed a lot of the sadness before the departure, causing many people to reveal smiles. Bon voyage. Karna, Lebby, and the others only said this one sentence and didn't say anything else. Everything was understood without words. Noah nodded in response. Then, he paused for a moment and turned to look at Lisanna's side. There, Mira was still wearing her revealing and sexy clothes. Her white ponytail was casually hanging behind her back. She crossed her arms and didn't say a single word. Humph. Seeing that Noah was looking at him, Mira dodged his gaze for a moment. Then, he snorted and turned his head away, looking like he had no intention of saying anything. Seeing this, Noah shrugged and said mockingly, "I hope you'll become gentler when I come back. Do you want to fight?" Mira blushed and glared at Noah. Her face was full of murderous intent, but the words that came out of her mouth were like that. "Will you come back if I become gentler?" Noah raised his eyebrows. After seriously considering it for a while, he said with a bit of amusement, "That's not impossible. When you become gentler, it'll be about time for me to come back." Myra's expression froze and she fell silent. Nobody saw that Myra's beautiful eyes flashed with undetectable thought as she lowered her head. She muttered softly in a voice that only she could hear, "I'll come back if I become gentler." Elfman. Noah raised his head and looked at Elfman, who was taller than him. "I hope that when I come back, you can become a little more manly and not be bullied by Mira. You have to learn how to protect your family, understand?" "Protect my family." Elfman was stunned at first, then looked at Mira and Lisanna with a look of determination in his eyes. "I want to become a man. Protect my family. That's the way." Noah patted Elfman's shoulder and finally looked at Makarov. "Be careful." That simple and comprehensive sentence expressed all the emotions in Makarov's heart. "I know." Noah took a step back and glanced at all of his fairy tale companions again. "Then, everyone, I'll take my leave first. See you in the near future." After saying that, Noah didn't hesitate any longer. He directly boarded the ship that had finished moving the goods while the captain's expression softened. "Goodbye. Goodbye. Noah. Brother Noah. Come back soon. Train hard. Don't let the first generation look down on you. We're looking forward to the 3 major spells of fairy tale. Don't let us down." At the port, below the ship, the members of Fairy Tale waved at Noah one after another, causing a warm feeling to surge in Noah's heart as he turned his back. Under such circumstances, the ship slowly set sail and sailed towards the boundless ocean. On the deck, Noah, whose back was facing the port, only had one thought left in his mind. He hoped that he would not cry when he left. "Noah." Just as Noah was thinking this, a loud call came from the port that was already very far away. Noah could not help but turn around and look in the direction of the port. In the next moment, Noah's body trembled and a dazed expression appeared in his eyes for the first time. "Who?" In an extremely orderly movement, the members of Fairy Tale standing at the port of Magnolia, led by Makarov, straightened one of their hands, stretched out their thumb and index finger, and pointed to the sky with an inverted 7 sign. That was a gesture that only those who were familiar with the fairy's tale or those who were familiar with the fairy's tale would know. This was the meaning behind the gesture that was unique to the fairy tale. Noah's hand was already tightly grasping the edge of the ship. His body leaned forward as if to see his family. His hand that was holding the edge of the ship was trembling and his expression was violently moved. All the emotions in his heart finally could not be controlled and all gushed out. Noah could only close his eyes and try his best to adjust his emotions. One of his hands was raised high above his head and made the same gesture as the members of Fairy Tale, pointing to the sky. At this moment, Noah's heart was incomparably convinced of a fact. Only Fairy's Tale was his home. He would definitely come back again. Heavenly Wolf Island. Carrying the cloth bag with his luggage, Noah disembarked from the ship and once again boarded the sacred land of Fairy Tale. After 2 days, Noah once again came to Heavenly Wolf Island. He could clearly feel that Heavenly Wolf Island was slightly different from the first time he came here. This slight difference was that the magic that filled the ground of Heavenly Wolf Island was no longer chaotic like last time. Instead, it flowed in an orderly manner and gathered in the direction of the Heavenly Wolf Tree. Looking at the huge Heavenly Wolf Tree not far away, Noah closed his eyes and covered his chest with his hand. Dong dong. Almost at the same time, Noah's heart strangely stirred. The calling that he could always feel also became stronger. Noah did not hesitate. As if he wanted to grasp this feeling, Noah's chest tightened. Wang! Without warning, the space around Noah began to distort, enveloping Noah's body and swallowing Noah's figure. Then, Noah disappeared from where he stood. Chapter 79. Even with his eyes closed, Noah could clearly feel it. In front of his eyes, there was a white that was enough to penetrate his eyelids and enter his vision. His brain seemed to have entered a state of confusion, and could not operate in time. His body seemed to have entered the world of water, and there was no sense of direction. Noah could only use his consciousness to barely understand that he seemed to be in a state of weightlessness. His body was spinning and floating back and forth uncontrollably, as if he was floating up and down with the waves. It was very strange. Noah himself did not know how long this feeling lasted. Perhaps, his confused brain was no longer able to distinguish the concept of time, and let Noah maintain this state until he grew old, or until he died. That might be the case. Therefore, when the familiar feeling of being on the ground was transmitted to Noah's confused brain through his feet, it made Noah's confused brain shake. When he gradually came to his senses, Noah actually had a faint sense of happiness and satisfaction to be able to be on the ground. Immediately, Noah opened his eyes. The first thing that entered Noah's eyes was a white that was enough to hurt people's eyes. Noah could not help but raise a hand in front of him, squinting his eyes slightly. After adapting to the strong white light, he raised his head and looked ahead. Unfortunately, there was nothing in front of Noah. There were no objects. There was no environment. There was no sky. There was no earth. Even the boundary line did not enter Noah's vision. This was a world with nothing. Except for a white that was enough to hurt people's eyes, there was nothing here. Noah seemed to be floating in the air, but he felt as though he was standing on solid ground. It was as though he was standing on an invisible ground. Everything in his field of vision was white. Except for the white, there was nothing. However, it was such an empty world that made Noah's body tremble, as if he had fallen into soft cotton. It was like a baby returning to his mother's body, and he felt very comfortable. This feeling made Noah's eyes widen. Because, this was a feeling that only appeared when he entered the white dream in the past. At that moment, Noah's remaining blurred consciousness was completely awakened, allowing Noah to realize what was going on. He wasn't really in a dream. This place was still the place that Noah had seen in his dreams more than once. However, this time, this place gave Noah a sense of reality, without the illusory feeling of a dream. Noah could understand what was happening in an instant. The fact that the white dream was real. Now, Noah finally came to the dream that could be said to have accompanied him for his whole life. Since this is the case, Noah slightly clenched his fists, and raised his head, to look at the direction where the sky should have been. Thus, Noah saw feathers falling to the ground to be falling floating in the bubble, the feathers that fell from the sky, enveloped by a white halo and suspended in a bubble, the feathers that fell from the sky, ding 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 ding. It was as if they were welcoming Noah. Pieces of feathers emitted dazzling halos as they came to Noah's side. Like little birds, they cheerfully circled Noah and began to circle around him. Bursts of intense light surged from the feathers. Bathed in the light, Noah felt an emotion called joy. The scene was exactly the same as when Noah obtained the feather on Sirius Island. The difference was that the feathers that were circling around him were not only much brighter than the feathers that Noah received, but the emotions contained within them were also much more intense. In addition, the feathers in front of him were complete. The feathers that Noah received, however, were incomplete. Wait! Noah suddenly woke up. Incomplete? If he didn't remember incorrectly, Noah remembered that in the white dream, other than these perfect feathers, there were also many incomplete feathers. It was unknown whether or not they knew what Noah was thinking, but the feathers that were circling around Noah suddenly dispersed. Following which, in the vast expanse of white sky, more and more feathers fell from the sky. They were incomplete and dull. Compared to the feathers from before, they looked as if they had lost their lives. This incomplete and dim feather also circled around Noah's body. As it spun, it emitted an extremely dim radiance compared to the previous feather. From these lights, Noah could only feel one emotion: sorrow. It was like a child who was crying to his family after being hurt. Noah couldn't help but reach out his hand and pick up one of the incomplete feathers. His eyes slightly shook, and he couldn't help but say this: "How can I help you?" Almost at the same time Noah's voice fell, Noah's body blossomed with the same light. A similarly incomplete feather floated out from his body and arrived in front of Noah. The incomplete feathers that were circling around Noah's body all trembled as if they were excited. Then, one by one, they began to circle around the feather that flew out from Noah's body. Not long after, one of the feathers seemed to tremble in joy. Together with the other feather that was also trembling, they slowly approached each other. Ding! In the next second, the two equally damaged pieces of the feather actually perfectly fit together. With a strange sound, they were restored to their perfect state. The recovered feathers blossomed with a strong light that absolutely couldn't be compared to before. They released emotions called excitement, gratitude, excitement, ecstasy, and other emotions to Noah. They flew to Noah's cheeks in an extremely human-like manner and rubbed against Noah's cheeks. Inconceivably, Noah's heart was filled with gratification and joy. It was as if he had a heart-to-heart with the feathers. He stroked the feather that was rubbing against his face and said as if he understood: "I understand. As long as I can find your incomplete parts, you can return to your original state, right?" Wang wang wang. Around them, the incomplete feathers began to tremble one by one, echoing Noah's words. But Noah furrowed his brows. "Where should I go to find your missing parts?" The feather that was rubbing against Noah's cheeks suddenly flew in front of Noah and immediately hit Noah's head. In the next moment, from the feather, fragments of memories flowed into Noah's mind, allowing Noah to obtain a fact that almost made him cry out involuntarily. "You are all worlds." Yes. These complete feathers, before his eyes, were all complete worlds. Except for the world where the fairy's tale was, the rest were all worlds. In other words, the world of the fairy's tale that Noah was originally in was within these feathers in front of him. And now, Noah had already left the world of the fairy's tale and arrived at another strange place. Between worlds. It was a special space where all the worlds were. As for those incomplete feathers, they were each a fragmented world. The other parts of them were lost in those complete worlds. If Noah wanted these feathers to return to their original state, then he would have to enter each and every world and find the remaining parts of the incomplete worlds. He would have to go and save each and every world. Noah's head was a little dizzy. However, the sadness that continued to be released from the surrounding feathers touched Noah's heart, and his expression became gloomy. Finally, Noah let out a deep sigh. The other worlds. Chapter 80. The sky was gray. The ground was red. The forest was decaying. The buildings were decaying. The wind carried a variety of pungent smells. The air was filled with an atmosphere that made one's heart palpitate. Vaguely, a roar that sounded like the roar of a tiger or the howl of a wolf reverberated in the surroundings, reverberating in every corner that could be touched. It gave people a feeling that they were not willing to have in their entire lives. Despair. Looking around at this world that seemed to have completely fallen into hell, Noah, who was standing in the middle of the ground that seemed to be dyed red with blood, couldn't help but deeply frown. What is going on with this world? Yes. With just a glance, Noah could recognize that this was a completely different world from the one he was in before. There would be no fairy tale here. There would be no magnolia. There would be no companions that Noah was familiar with. There would also be no place where Noah was supposed to stay. For Noah, this world was completely unfamiliar. Of course, when Noah decided to enter other worlds and help those incomplete feathers, to restore their original state, he had already mentally prepared himself. Therefore, even if he came to a completely unfamiliar world, Noah would not be at a loss, nor would he panic. However, at this moment, Noah was truly confused. Since he was entering another world, Noah did not have the extravagant hope that the world he went to was the same as the world he was originally in. However, what was going on with this world that was filled with despair? Could it be that I didn't enter a complete world, but an incomplete world? But Noah had indeed touched a complete feather, so he should have come to a complete world. Moreover, from the feathers that represented each world, Noah also obtained some relevant memory fragments. Therefore, Noah knew that an incomplete world was a world that had been destroyed to a certain extent. Not to mention not being able to enter, even if they could, they would instantly lose their lives due to various circumstances. For example, in a broken world, some had no air, some had no water, some had no food, and some had no living creatures. Unless they could be repaired, it would be a real hell. It was because of this that Noah couldn't help but think that the world in front of him wasn't complete. After all, the atmosphere of despair was too strong, wasn't it? In addition, Noah was also very concerned about one thing. Noah raised his eyes and looked in a certain direction. He tightened the long sack on his shoulder. He saw that somewhere far away from Noah, there was a place that looked like a city. Why did he say that it was similar? That was because a normal city would definitely not be like the city that Noah saw, surrounded by huge black stone monuments that reached into the clouds and were much taller than normal mountains. That was a city that was surrounded by huge black stone monuments that reached into the clouds. Staring at the city that was surrounded by huge black stone monuments, Noah sighed after a while. Looks like I've come to a very amazing world. After saying that, Noah patted his cheeks and pulled himself together. No matter what, there is a place where humans gather. I will definitely be able to obtain some information. Let's first understand what kind of world I've come to. There was no way for a world to dry up a world. Therefore, even if a part of the fragments of an incomplete world were in a different world, the world itself had no way to take them out and restore the incomplete world to its original state. Otherwise, there would be no need for Noah to go through so much trouble to go to another world to collect the fragments of a world. What kind of form would the fragments of a world exist in? Noah also didn't know clearly. Some of them would be scattered in a certain place. Some of them would be hidden in a certain object. Some of them would need to be found personally. Some of them would need to meet certain conditions to appear on their own. All in all, Noah wanted to find the fragments of a world. If he was lucky, he would be able to find them in 1 or 2 days. But if he was unlucky, he might not be able to find them in 10 or 20 years. What Noah could do was to obtain all the useful information. As long as he obtained information related to the fragments of a world, Noah would be able to receive hints from the current world and obtain traces of the fragments of a world. For example, last time, after Noah received information about the celestial Wolf Island, he received a hint about that world and entered the dreamland, where he truly saw the location of the world fragment. And before obtaining a certain amount of information, even Noah's world would not know the location of the fragments of a world. In other words, Noah was like a detector for the fragments of a world. After entering the world of the fragments of a world, as long as he obtained a certain amount of information, the current world would be able to use Noah as a detector to infer the location of the fragments of a world and give hints to Noah. In this way, Noah's existence was like, born in order to find the fragments of a world. Noah's eyes flashed with a complicated expression as he sighed again and again. In the end, after leaving Fairy's tale, the secret of my existence can only be obtained from such a depressing guess? It was just that Noah unexpectedly couldn't hate this task. There was no other way. Who told those feathers to be like children, pure and innocent, making it impossible for Noah to ignore them? So, cheer up. Unfortunately, there was someone who wanted to make things difficult for Noah. Gee! Following such a sharp sound, the ground where Noah was suddenly trembled. Noah's expression turned cold. Without hesitation, he jumped up and with an astonishing leap, he jumped more than 20 meters into the air. Pang! Suddenly, the ground where Noah was originally at was broken by a huge black shadow. Dirt and stones flew in all directions, and smoke and dust filled the air. Noah, who had jumped into the air, looked below him, and his pupils fiercely shrank. Gee! A 4 to 5 meter tall monster without fur, with veins popping out like water pipes, a body like a snake, and a head like a man-eating flower, drilled out from the ground. At the same time, it let out a sharp cry, and its mouth full of sharp teeth fiercely bit down, swallowing a lot of dirt. That was the dirt that Noah was originally at. If Noah did not jump up in time, then right now, he would be like the dirt, trapped by the disgusting monster's mouth full of unknown liquid, and enter the monster's stomach. Ha! Noah let out a laugh that sounded like anger. You're quite capable. After saying that, Noah directly used the air as a springboard. He turned his body, head down and feet up, and the soles of his feet fiercely stepped on the ground, causing the air to vibrate violently. At the same time, his body was like a bullet, turning into a shadow and shooting down. Shio! Amidst the sharp air-breaking noise, Noah, who was descending from the sky, spun around again. This time, he swung his leg out with all his might. Together with the explosive descent of his body, he landed a heavy kick on the disgusting head of the monster that looked like a man-eating flower. Pang! Before it could even make a sound, the 4 to 5 meter tall monster with a snake's body and a man-eating flower's head was directly kicked by Noah and exploded. Pa pa pa! The disgusting flesh with black blood scattered around, fell on the ground around, and after a few squirms, it stopped moving. This is not a demon, right? Noah, who landed on the ground, looked at the scattered flesh around, and smelled a kind of unpleasant stench in the air. He covered his nose, turned his head, and looked at the city surrounded by huge black stone tablets. My guess was right. We've really come to an incredible world. Chapter 81. Gazes from all directions were focused on Noah, making Noah, who was carrying a cloth bag, frown for a long time. Looking up and looking around, he saw that people who seemed to be residents of this city were passing by Noah. Most of them cast a scrutinizing look at Noah, and some even secretly talked about him, which made Noah somewhat unhappy. Noah, who just came to this world, couldn't have done anything that could attract people's attention. Therefore, the surrounding people were more or less pointing at Noah. There should be another reason. Noah just came to this world, and he didn't know much about this world. To avoid unnecessary disputes, it was better to avoid doing anything strange. Because of this, although Noah was very curious about the surrounding buildings, on the surface, he acted as if nothing had happened. About 30 minutes ago, Noah entered this city. As long as you raised your eyes and looked into the distance, no matter who it was, you could see the huge steels in any corner of this city. Relying on his extraordinary perception, Noah could feel that those huge black steels were faintly exuding some kind of strange fluctuation. It was these fluctuations that made the monsters outside, who wanted to get close to this city, as if they didn't dare to take a step forward. They had been wandering a certain distance away from this city. And this also allowed Noah to more or less get some information. Outside this city, there were many monsters like the monsters that attacked Noah. This kind of monster, but more bloodthirsty than ordinary monsters, seemed to bring a great threat to this city, and even the humans in this world. Moreover, it was a life-threatening threat. Therefore, humans seemed to be hiding in this city surrounded by steels that could emit obscure fluctuations to achieve the effect of driving away those monsters. This phenomenon, whether it was everywhere in this world, or only in this area, Noah still didn't know. To understand the situation, first of all, Noah had to find a place where he could collect information. However, Noah encountered a problem that was neither too big nor too small. Generally speaking, the best way to collect information at such a time was to go to a bar, hotel, restaurant, and so on. As long as one waited patiently, there would always be people who would talk about various topics during their idle chat, which could bring Noah a lot of information. However, Noah found that it was very difficult to find these places here. The reason was very simple. Sigh. Noah looked at the surrounding buildings and sighed as if he was exhausted. Where in the world is like a bar? That's right. Noah couldn't tell from the surrounding buildings where a bar or something like that was located. The buildings in this world seemed to be different from the buildings in Noah's original world to a certain extent. The surrounding buildings were made of stone bricks and glass, at least 10 to 20 meters in height. There were also buildings of ordinary height. However, these places were basically the same size and shape. It was either difficult to distinguish from the outside, or the plaque hanging above was written in words that Noah didn't recognize, making it impossible for Noah to find. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that on some of the roads, there were some strange vehicles made of steel, with tires under them, going back and forth at different speeds. There were also some pillars on the road that were similar to magic lamps that changed colors from time to time. Only when a certain color was reached would the vehicles stop, allowing people to walk on the road and go to the other side. These rules, for a newcomer like Noah, although it wasn't difficult to determine what kind of actions to take under different circumstances, but when he thought of the various rules in this city that only he didn't know about, Noah felt all kinds of distress. It was also because of this that Noah's actions were quite restrained. Only when the people around him were doing the same thing, Noah would do it. Otherwise, Noah had to carefully control his actions to avoid causing trouble. Fortunately, not long after, Noah's eyes began to light up, and the corner of his mouth also curved up. In the place where Noah's line of sight was, in the middle of a row of buildings, there was a building that seemed to be a shop. There were rows of bookshelves in the shop, and the bookshelves were lined with old and new books. Books? Wasn't that a carrier that recorded all kinds of information? For Noah, this was a tool that could save his life. Immediately, Noah hurriedly walked to the bookstore. However, 5 minutes later, Noah came out of the bookstore gloomily. The owner in charge of selling books was an amiable old man. However, no matter how amiable he was, it was too much of a headache for Noah. There were 3 reasons. 1. Noah didn't know what language the other party spoke. 2. Noah didn't know any of the words on the books. 3. The currency Noah carried with him was not the same as the currency of this world. So, Noah simply hit a wall. Sigh. Noah realized that he had been sighing since he came to this world. I have to think of a way. In fact, Noah had some extraordinary understanding and memory. Otherwise, Noah couldn't have learned the language of the original world with just a few books without anyone's guidance, and reached the level of communicating with others. As long as certain conditions were met, Noah could learn a certain level of language expression. However, there had to be someone to communicate with Noah first, and with Noah's sensing ability, carefully observe and analyze what the other party meant when they expressed a certain language. Only then could he slowly learn the language. Just now, with this idea in mind, Noah tried to communicate with the owner of the bookstore, so that he could at least learn how to communicate, and then learn the language. However, 5 minutes later, because Noah didn't buy anything and kept speaking in a language that he didn't understand, the boss asked Noah to come out with a vexed expression. Although these 5 minutes allowed Noah to learn a certain level of answering, such as, yes, no, hello, sorry, and other simple words, in the end, he still couldn't fully communicate with others. There's no other way. Noah rubbed his eyebrows. Although doing this will definitely be annoying and eye-catching, it's the only way now. Leaving this sentence, Noah began to work hard. The content of the work was simple. He kept looking for passers-by to talk. Not long after, on the street where Noah was, many passers-by were forcibly pulled by Noah to have all kinds of unrelated conversations. Because of this, Noah also received all kinds of treatment. Some warm-hearted people, after communicating with Noah for a period of time, were completely scared by Noah's pestering, and ran away with their tails between their legs. Some cold people were annoyed by Noah, and raised their fists wanting to teach Noah a lesson. In the end, these people were all thrown into small alleys by Noah, and also ran away with their tails between their legs. Some puzzled people had been playing a game of communication with Noah. Some people who were in a hurry, after being forcibly pulled by Noah, flew into a rage, and when there was no other way, they ran away like they were running away. In the end, Noah was brought to a room by a kind passerby. The people inside were all wearing strict uniforms, with hats on their heads, black short sticks on their waists, and silver handcuffs. Their faces were somewhat fiendish. About 2 to 3 days later, Noah came out of the room with satisfaction, leaving behind a group of people who had been burned to death lying on the ground, unable to get up again. Later, Noah found out. This place was called the police station. Those fiendish people who were pestered by Noah to the point of vomiting blood were called the police. Chapter 82. Walking on the road, Noah held a book in his hand, flipping through it while walking forward aimlessly. This book was taken by Noah from one of the office desks when he left the place called the police station. The title of the book was Protozoan War. During the 2 to 3 days in the police station, every day, Noah would be challenging the police's bottom line by pestering them and communicating with them one by one. In the end, although all the police in the police station respected Noah like a tiger and wanted to drive him away, Noah still successfully learned to communicate with them to a certain extent. If there weren't any problems, Noah would be able to carry out normal daily life communication smoothly. As for the language, Noah wanted to more or less master it through the book in his hand. Otherwise, Noah would not be able to smoothly obtain a lot of information recorded in the book, and that would be a bit of a problem. Of course, during the 2 to 3 days in the police station, Noah not only obtained a certain degree of communication ability, but also some information about this world. It was the same feeling Noah had when he first came to this world. This world, basically, could be said to be a world full of despair. About 9 years ago, this world was still a peaceful world with a population of more than 8 billion people. However, on a certain day 9 years ago, a kind of monster appeared in this world without warning, and with a terrifying infection ability, it gained an astonishing number of people and attacked the human world on a large scale. The monsters were collectively known as protozoan. They were creatures that were born after being infected with a terrifying virus that had high infectivity through blood and could rewrite the DNA of living creatures. The virus was called protozoan virus. Creatures infected with the protozoan virus, whether human or animal, would all be transformed into protozoan by the virus at an astonishing speed, becoming complete monsters. These monsters not only had terrifying and ferocious power, but they could also infect other creatures with the protozoan virus by injecting body fluids into them, turning the infected creatures into protozoan. They also had a certain degree of regeneration ability. Human weapons could not easily kill these monsters. Under such circumstances, a terrifying number of protozoa launched a large-scale attack on the human world 9 years ago, starting a world war. In the end, humans were defeated. The population of around 8 billion dropped sharply. Only about a tenth of them remained. In the past, the humans who had once ruled over the entire world had also been snatched away by the protogut animals. The remaining 10% of the human population was hiding in the remaining areas. Under the almost hopeless disparity, the protogut animals and the protogut animals engaged in a long, tug-of-war for 9 years. And what protected the last areas of human survival and prevented humans from being completely wiped out were those huge black stone tablets that stood around the city. The monolith was a gigantic metallic monolith made of pitch-black metal. The monolith was able to emit a special, weak magnetic field. It possessed the ability to weaken the virus of the protozoa, causing the protozoa to lose their ability to regenerate, and causing the protozoa to instinctively stay away from them. It was because of the existence of the monolith that could cause the protozoa to lose their ability to regenerate that humans had the possibility of fighting the protozoa. The monolith, which was made of a large amount of monolith, was erected around the last remaining land of humans, using the magnetic field released by the monolith to isolate the protozoa, allowing humans to survive. But even so, humans could only hide in the places where the monolith existed to prolong their last breaths. Until now, they still dreamed of being able to reclaim their lost land in the future, but they could not do anything to the proto-god animals, which had an astonishing number and power. This world was just so despairing. And the city Noah was in was called the Tokyo area. It was one of the 5 areas that was split into 5 after a country called Japan was invaded by the proto-god animals. Noah's luck was really not bad. If it was not because he was around the Tokyo area when he descended into this world, Noah would have been besieged by the army of proto-god animals that could only be described as terrifying. Noah did not know what level of power these monsters called proto-god animals had. However, after 2 to 3 days of hard work, Noah also found out that creatures infected by the proto-god animal virus would mutate in a short period of time and mix the infected DNA with the DNA of other animals, turning into terrifying and ferocious monsters, known as proto-god animals. And the more DNA of different species mixed with the proto-god animals, the stronger and harder their strength and outer skin would be. Therefore, basically, proto-god animals were divided into levels I to 4 according to the strength of the proto-god animals. Generally, proto-god animals that were only infected with the DNA of one species and had the ability to possess the DNA of one species were the weakest, stage I. Those that were infected with 2 or more proto-god animals and had the ability to possess the DNA of 2 or 3 species would evolve to stage 2. Proto-god animals in stage 3 and stage 4 generally had the DNA of multiple species and also had all the advantages and abilities of these species, which was very terrifying. When he first arrived in this world, he was kicked to the point of exploding by Noah's crisp kick, causing him to be unable to even regenerate. The stage of the protozoan should be stage 2, a protozoan with the DNA of more than 2 species.